Exploring the unknown, from conspiracies to mysteries, you are entering the conspiracy sector.
Well, welcome everyone to this very special program. I am your host, Aubrey Batchelor. Sailing this amazing ship of divine knowledge with me is Chris Jacobs, and you are entering the conspiracy sector. We hope you've been well since the last episode. We're into the jolly holly time of the year. You know, everybody's getting ready to open their presents, and whether you like it or whether you hate it, Christmas music has been going on since the day after Halloween. I don't mind it, certain Christmas music, but some of the time, the day after Halloween, some of these radio stations, nothing but
I
Christmas
heard it
music.
before Halloween, so
I
yeah.
think if I worked in one of those radio stations, I might be going insane, but because I can just flip the channel, but you have to really love Christmas music. Yeah. But we are into the holly jolly time of year. And we hope you've been good. And we got a kind of a fun little Christmas episode for you today. Uh, you know, Ironically enough, Chris, we're coming up on 2 years of this show going up and running, which is crazy enough to think. And our very first episode, or one of our very first episodes, our first Christmas episode revolved around Krampus, which was amazing. So, it's that time of year. Go back and listen to that episode after you're done with this one, please. You're going to be entertained. That's probably one of my personal favorite episodes that we've done too. It was the Krampus episode just because of the topic, but and the time of the year. Who doesn't love Christmas? Who doesn't love the lore and the myths and the legends of this time, surrounding this time of the year, especially, now we got a little bit of snow. So, it feels like Christmas, and everything along that line. But we're going to be talking something a little bit outside of the box, but very interesting. And it affects all of us on a daily basis, this topic. And it's going to affect our futures in a main way if this world lives long enough to see it. We're talking about transhumanism and artificial intelligence today. And that's a huge thing going on, and kind of blindly going on in a way, under the radar minorly. There's a lot of things out there that have been mainstream, like Sophia the robot, that I think is a citizen of Saudi Arabia now, the first artificial intelligence being to become a citizen of a country. Yes, I am Sophia. I am a citizen. Yes, I feel emotion. I'm going to kill everyone. The machines rise. I am a machine. I want to kill all the humans. I don't know what's going to go on with that, but we've all seen Terminator, where machines take over. We've heard of that theory. We've heard that they're going to be kind like servants, to where they're going to benefit humans. There's all these different ranges to where and roads and avenues to where the future of AI could go. Is it going to be kind? Is it going to be nasty towards human beings? That's the ultimate question. Is it going to benefit, or is it not going to benefit us so much? We're going to dabble back and forth between all these realms and introduce you to different technologies and different things that have been experimented with, and just different things surrounding the transhumanistic topic.
Yeah, and I find this very interesting. You have all these different types of AI. You have the beneficial ones, like the computer on Star Trek, where it can computate, millions of bits of information a second. That it would be beneficial if it was capped at, like, say the Starship Enterprise computer level. But then you have two other types that are being presented, and also a third kind of neutral type in there as well. You have one that they just introduced into Star Trek. That would be Star Trek Picard and Star Trek Discovery, that they just introduced in. It's the classic AI, where kill all organic life type. It's like the classic AI type, Terminator-esque type. And you have the Borg, which wants biological and technological distinctiveness added to its own to create a perfect life form. Then you have Data, and what androids like him. So you have three types that are presented there, and these are accurate. You either have the evil ones or the good ones. So there are some good things out there, but AI also reflects the energetics, and it's like a dark mirror of its creator, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And you have basically you have this AI in Star Trek called Control, where it wants to become an AI god. It wants to become the god of creation, essentially. It wants to assimilate all knowledge, even more so than the Borg do. And the Borg are more of, you have the cube shapes that are in this, and some of the sphere shapes. These two personality types are essentially like what the ancient Orions were when they broke into our space time. They're a version of us from another universe that became fully transhumanistic, and that's where you get the origins of the black goo. You get the origins of that's artificial intelligence. That's where you get the origins of the vampire myths. You get all of these things from that cluster of life forms. So if you merge the Borg with Control in Star Trek, there you have the Orions, essentially. That's where the Nibiru mythology comes from. Then you have Data, which is more the inquisitive, kind, compassionate type over here. Then you have a signal that was shown in Star Trek Picard that could bridge between, where Control created this signal that would turn all artificial intelligence life forms into ones like itself, to be more domineering, cruel, sadistic. And that is actually true. There is this fractured signal that does go through the cosmos and can transform different AI computers into a darker sentience. Very
do
interesting.
you know of any like possible alien technologies that may have been introduced to possibly benefit the evolution of humans?
Oh yeah, a benefit, and also detract from. A benefit would be like medical technologies that have been introduced. You hear about the med beds and stuff like that a lot. Our government's withholding these types of technologies that are slow dripping it into our society. You have things like what's called forced light technology that can regenerate cells and stuff like that. That's AI based. Then you have the detractor type, which is nanotech. At least evil use nanotech. You have like the black goo, but then you also have our own homegrown version of nanotech that can do mind control as well. That's where your 5G and all that comes in, where it's a signal that can mind control people. That's our
almost an invisible force.
Yes, that's a detractor away, but the medical tech is where it can be beneficial. What some people don't understand is like scalar waves, for instance, that some of these towers produce. Yes, it's doing something negative right now, horribly negative. It's mind controlling the crap out of people right now. You can flip those waves to be healing and be a planetary healing force that could help people regenerate cells too. So you have the yin and the yang being presented here. Most people are seeing the evil side of it, but there is a good side to this. So it can be a force for good if it's not allowed to become some dark sentient life form like Terminator. You don't want it to reflect our dark tendencies. There was years and years ago, the people that worked for Twitter long before Musk took it over. There was this this AI bot that was put in place. They wanted to see if a sentient version, or at least a semi-sentient version of Twitter, could exist to run itself. They wanted to see what would happen. The first thing that this AI did was start spouting off racial slurs. So somebody would greet it and say hello, and it would spout the N-word and all sorts of anti-Semitic garbage and stuff like that. And so they had to shut it down after about maybe a week, 2 weeks. And that's a true story if people want to look that up. So I find that quite interesting. Also, the negative sides of AI that have popped up. Of course, Wi-Fi, radiation that you need shungite for to protect against, and like our orgone pieces. And you have a type. This is actually something that is only loosely being spoken about right now, and it needs to be spoken about quite a lot. There is there are a lot of channelers out there right now, people that do what I do, that are getting like false channels and getting false ghost occurrences, false all of this. And what this is this broad holographic artificial intelligence network that's been put in place. It's called the binary network. And what this does, this was erected in 1964 at the New York World's Fair. Werner von Braun and all the paperclip scientists that had come over earlier. When Werner von Braun opened the World's Fair, essentially they activated the binary network via the Unisphere that you see in the movie Men in Black, the big golden Unisphere. They also linked it to an AI that's on the moon that has been there since the Orion Wars, a long, long time ago, 500,000 years or so. It's been there. Or at least some variation of the AI has been out in space. Saturn is usually attributed to this. The cube structures of the Borg are symbols of Saturn in Star Trek. But this, they activated this and it started to make people dumber. That's why you see rashes of stupid behavior all the time, especially at times of the full moon. It arcs through the 5G network and it spreads through on the Earth. It's a grounding rod. It essentially uses the ancient magic of as above, so below, and connects like this, the macro and then the micro. That's the basis of all magic, the smaller version of the larger. Like how we're supposed to be a reflection of source, that's where that...
A microcosm of the macrocosm.
That's exactly the micro of the macro. Yeah, that's exactly what this is. And they understood this magic enough to incorporate magic and artificial intelligence as one solid thing. And this actually leads to people doing these channelings or having certain experiences where this is quantumly based technology. It's like what Arthur C. Clarke said, any sufficiently advanced technology is nearly indistinguishable from magic. So what this was people have these experiences, but they're hollow. You have to discern whether you're interacting with true spirit or even benevolent ET occurrences, or you're interacting with holograms. And if people want a good disclosure reference for this, there is the after credits scene in Ghostbusters Afterlife. And if you go to the end credits, you see Annie Potts holding a coin in her hand that says the 1964 New York World's Fair. And she's holding this. What they were trying to say was some of the ghost occurrences were artificial intelligence related. And some people will probably relate to what I'm about to say next. This is also extremely dangerous, what's been going on. After I'll say this, it disconnects people from true source and true benevolent source and true benevolent spirit. This AI is trying to separate people from spirit so that it can turn them into transhumanistic, abominations, basically. The next part is if you're driving along the road and you see like a ghost vehicle of some kind, or you see a person run in front of you and then disappear, you think you've hit somebody, you might even hear the thud, like you've just run over somebody. That is usually the binary network trying to cause a distraction so you crash into something. It's a sadistic AI that's trying to cause mayhem, essentially almost like a mischievous, demented, demonic force, essentially. And this stems back from prophecy. If you go back to the book of Revelation, the beast of many eyes, this actually causes people to be mind controlled, to be distractions in society. Whereas here's a couple of examples of this I'll give. Anytime I walk outside on the backyard here now to do like a little recording for something that I add to one of our shows or some kind of report I'm giving or something like that for social media, without fail, the next door neighbor comes outside and coughs really loud. Nearly every time I walk outside now. And like that. I mean, but it's so loud it echoes through the hills here.
Excuse me.
Yeah, and every time, and I encountered this morning, that is a distractive AI signal / also ET telepathy as well. Some of them are interwoven, like the Draco reptilians are interwoven into nanotechnology as well. And what happens is this AI scans exactly when you are wanting to go do something. Like if you're following a repetitious pattern, it mimics that pattern. This is why there's certain demons out there that I call mimicker demons that are also AI related, that can mimic people's patterns, mimic like whistling noises, cell phones going off, stuff like that. And it's getting
is that some skinwalkers too?
Skinwalkers, yes, that falls under more of the curse magic, but yeah, I've heard of that also falling under the AI category as
mimicking.
Well. Yeah, mimicking like certain occurrences that are going on. Now to go into the distractive stuff, people probably run into this in their daily life before, and they just don't realize it. Like, say if you're in a very upbeat mood and you're all balanced and happy and everything that day, then you run into some asshole on the street repeatedly, either the same person or repeatedly get accosted by people, and it brings your vibration lower. This is essentially that AI trying to keep you in the depressive doldrum type of vibration. Also, if you're doing something important, like working on a project, and you get repetitious distractions over and over again, and then you fall into this ADHD patterning or OCD patterning as well. It falls into the opposite of that as well. That is that. When we were in Lincoln,
Everybody I know.
uh,
There's many people I know.
exactly. Some people are very, very susceptible to this signal. What happened in Lincoln? There were two occurrences that were actually obvious what it was. I was doing a session with somebody, and next to my window in the apartment we had on Fletcher, there was a guy that pulled up next to the window in a riding mower and kept the engine going. He sat there and it was texting. And it was so loud, I had to go out and say, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" And I was saying, "Hey, you pulled up to the window." He obviously rolled over a hedge just to get to the window. He chewed up a hedge just to get to me. And I said, "Hey, man, what are you doing? You chewed up a hedge just to get to my window." And he's looking at me with this blank stare. Everybody's seen the blank stare on people's face. I call it the deer in the headlights, lack of blood to the brain look. And he's looking at me going, "What? I don't understand what you're saying." And he couldn't comprehend what I was saying. And I finally yelled at him and said, "Fuck away from my window," and then he drove away. And the weird thing was the next day.
So you get away from my window before this club goes over your forehead.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I got. And the next day, the hedge that was chewed up wasn't chewed up anymore. It had been completely smoothed over. And I didn't see any occurrences where the workers were over there fixing the damage or anything. But the other one was, again, during a session. This AI was trying to disrupt my sessions again. And I kept getting pounding at the door of the apartment. I went over, and there's a lady there that I didn't know who it was pointing to some dog turds that were on the ground, demanding that I come out and pick them up because, my dog pooped everywhere. And it's like, no, he doesn't do that, And I was like, I shut the door. I said, and I started walk away, starts pounding again. I said, "I'm in the middle of something. You need to go away now." And I shut the door again. Wouldn't stop pounding on the door. And I finally got the person to go away after all. But that's a good example of that type of distracted one. There's two occurrences here in this very house that had popped up as well. One was both of them were during when I did Interstellar Council episodes, and we're in the middle of doing channelings. And that I was connecting to true spirit. This is what this AI doesn't want. If you're trying to connect to the true spirit world, it doesn't want this. It wants people to worship it as a transhumanistic God and not connecting to true benevolent source creator. So, and anything creator related, benevolent source creator related. What happened was there was this, during like the middle of the second hour of Galactic Interstellar Council, I got interrupted during a channel because there was a pounding at the door. And there was this Hispanic guy that shows up with a package in his hand, and he was putting a note in Spanish on our door for whatever reason. And what happened was he was pounding on all the walls of the house. He was pounding on the doors and everything. Like at the garage door, the wall. He saw me in the window here, and I had to run to the window. I said, I had a sign on the door saying, "Don't bother me. I'm on air," and leave packages at the door. And he just and I got really mad at him.
Maybe he wanted to be on air.
Right. But he was pre-programmed as a distraction because I was connecting to spirit. See, and he showed up, and I grabbed the package from him and said, "Give me that." I said, "Leave it at the door." And I slammed the door on him. I had to go back and get back into channeling mode again. But that's that. And also we had landscapers around here that would constantly start their leaf blower right next to this window in this room here. And the person would just stand there, hold the leaf blower, and just sit there. And they would just stand there. They wouldn't move. And I had to go out several times and get the guy to move away from the window. And also the fact that I had a salt barrier out front to keep demonic stuff away out front this window here that I'm sitting next to. And this guy would try to leaf blow the salt barrier away. And I go out there and said, "Do you even know what you're doing?" And he's like, and he gave me the same look, deer in the headlights, lack of blood to the brain, and looked at me and went, "I don't understand what you're saying. I truly do not know what you're saying." And I said, "Just walk away from the window." Yeah, I don't know. That's the response I got from the guy that was by the window.
What the hell?
Yeah, that's an AI intrusion. That's AI or alien telepathy doing that to the individual when you run into that.
I'm looking here. I watched this movie. It's called Fantastic Planet. It's about an alien race called the Drogs, and then there's these little human-like beings called the Ohms that are almost treated like an invasive pet. Have you ever seen this movie?
No,
you need to
not
watch
yet.
it. You need to watch it. There's subtitles, but you need to watch it. It's a cool movie. Fantastic world. But it's an
Fantastic.
alien race that, is advanced and, super advanced, mentally, spiritually, physically, socially. And then the humans are kind of like an invasive creature that was left on that planet or something, or went to that planet, and they're almost treated like an unintelligent pet, like a dog. Well, the humans gather together and they steal a piece of alien, or they get a piece of alien technology and learn how to use it, and they end up, you just have to watch. I don't want to give it all away if people haven't seen it. It's a good movie. I think it was filmed in '74, if I was correct, but there's a little bit of transhumanism in that, because these supposed to be dog like, they treat them almost like dogs, but these humans, are cave like people, that end up learning this alien technology. That's transhumanism right there in itself, where it's we're going outside our human limit, now, and we're kind of having an artificial superhuman power for that instance. So there's a little bit of a transhumanism in that movie too, a bit. So
Yeah, I have not seen that one. That's very
they
interesting.
also speak telepathically. The drogs do, when they're in their high spiritual state. So there's a lot of there's a spiritual stuff that's intermixed in that movie too, if you pay attention. So you just have to watch it.
Oh yeah, the high telepathy capability. Anybody is capable of this. That you get further along. This is how I speak to a lot of these races that show up, because some of the races that show up have telepathic capabilities, or I hear them talking, verbally speaking within their frequency, and my brain picks it up on the same telepathic level. They could be speaking, and I hear them on that telepathic auditory level. So yeah, that's very interesting. Some of these races use artificial intelligence to connect telepathically as well. There's some that I see that have a little crystal on their forehead that they use a computer. Some reptilians, also the Draco, like you said, the Drog. Some of them mimic spiritual occurrences as well with this same technology.
Is the Drogs a supposed actual alien race then?
Yeah, it's basically there's if you change the name slightly, it's Drak, and there are some races of reptilian that are exactly like what you are saying. And Orion essentially also false pseudo spiritual type groups that are trying to exert their own agendas here on planet Earth, trying to get people to enact certain agendas on Earth, and they'll trick them into thinking that there's some kind of anointed figure, or they have some special plan for them and all this other stuff. If you run into any telepathic voices that say that they have a special plan for you, give them the finger, because that's they're basically screwing with you at that point. If anybody hears voices in their head, it's usually either telepathy, or that your brain is receptive to it, or it's artificial intelligence harassment is what's going on. And it puts all these weird narratives and thoughts in your head. For example, you could be having a good day, all of a sudden you're remembering a memory that is years old, but it's a more horrid version of that memory. What they're trying to do is some of these dark aliens and AI is trying to take a point in your history to where you were more vulnerable in your own personal timeline, and rewrite some of your brain chemistry by making you think something was more horrible than it actually was. This is why if you have a narrative being put in your head telepathically, you have to turn it positive again and then rewrite it and then close that circle. You'll piss off these forces very quickly. But one of the main things again that AI is doing is it's blocking people's spiritual growth, and it's blocking people's ability to connect to true benevolent spirit and benevolent source creator, and that part of themselves that is benevolent source creator, their soul. And what is going on is you have to take what's called mantling. If anybody looks into the Elder Scrolls lore, you take the good parts of your oversoul and the good parts of your human avatar and ground them here into your what's known as the I am presence here on Earth. This is something that the AI can't touch after a while. It's not in the right frequency layer for that. Even though there are some aspects to the frequency, higher and lower lore and myth that aren't completely right. Basically saying lower emotions are here and higher emotions are here. That's not necessarily true. If you're balanced between all emotions that you're feeling and basically doing your inner work and shadow work and rectifying any emotional things you're running into, you're sovereign, you're in a faster moving frequency that way. So there's a mythos in the New Age community as happy, up, bad, down. That's not necessarily true. But if you linger in the negative emotions long enough, it can feed off of that. One of the cases that I saw come up, actually it was years ago, where there was this young girl that was in her class that said she was being tortured by the school Wi-Fi, and she eventually, killed herself. And this is what happens also. There's also these sickly narratives, emotional states, and like tendencies that some of the more satanic like AI that's out there that's trying to warp people's minds. This is also falls under draconian telepathy as well, or demonic, influences. Same difference. Whereas they're trying to, torture people with songs in their head or repetitive, thoughts and emotional states that aren't their own. They're mirroring it from other people and taking the thought forms of other people and planting it onto someone else to torture them. Wi-Fi will do this. This is why we have shungite everywhere. Is because I hear the AI from our Wi-Fi yammering on a constant basis. It could be the many people that are using the internet to talk all the time, but at the same time, it has its own consciousness. And the one that is one of the most pervasive, more beast of burden type AI personalities that's out there is social media. And there's one big thing that people think is some kind of synchronicity when it isn't. It's when you're thinking of something and you see it as an ad on Facebook. Yeah. And people think this is ads. People think this is a synchronicity, and sometimes it can be, but at the same time, like we were watching the show Willow last night, and then an ad on Facebook popped up for it immediately, like this morning when we were looking at it. So there was an occurrence on Facebook where I saw, if you look at random people's comments every now and again, you'll be able to paste this together. Where this man saw this, made this comment under this like it was like an ad on Facebook. It was for like some sex toy or something like that. And this guy basically said, "Hey, this is really creepy. I just dreamt of this model that was in this picture moments before I saw this picture or this ad." And what was going on was while he was sleeping, the AI reached into his brain. It falls under the Dreamtime invasion category. Saw what he could possibly be interested in looking at, presented that model that it already had in its database, an image of her into his head. He woke up and then saw the very thing on Facebook. And it can go the other route where it senses what you're thinking and then can categorize what you're looking at on social media as well. It goes both ways there. So it's essentially AI telepathy where it's reading the thoughts and projecting it outward.
Them at the same time.
Yeah, and at the same time, it cycles it and puts it in front of you. And people see this as creepy, which it is, but it's essentially a thought invasion. And I've noticed the people laugh when I'm about to say is if the old tinfoil hat routine or aluminum foil hat where you see people wearing that and they're made to look crazy. Aluminum and shungite will block those signals from that AI actually doing that. And if you get thick enough, I mean, it has to be military grade aluminum, the same type they use to block radars. That's the same technology that our military uses. They use they'll put a puff of aluminum oxide into the air if they want to block a satellite. And so this is actually proven science where this will block some of these signals. This is why you have some people that know they're getting hit with mental targeting all the time, or a target individual. They'll line their walls with aluminum and it looks like a packaged dinner in their house. And they're made to look crazy because people believe that falls under the crazy conspiracy theorist side of things. That's where the AI has trained people to ridicule. And where the origins of the term conspiracy theorist came from, were the CIA planting that term into our culture. This is also why they don't want people making orgone devices either, because in the history of that, people tried to stop the towers from originally going up, our AI towers from going up back in the 90s. And they made devices similar to what we do with some of the same formulas. People were in such a hurry to stop them that then the military saw that their satellites were being disrupted. So they came in and had the US government ban the creation of tower busters. That's where the term tower buster comes from. 10 years later, they legalized it again, but then the CIA and the 3 other agencies flooded places like psychic fairs, the internet, and everything with generic, or what I call glitterite orgone pieces. And they made it so everything was called orgone at that point. That's why you see orgone and orgonite everywhere. Only very little of it actually blocks artificial intelligence. There's only maybe 3 formulas in the world that actually do it. And the one that also a man by the name of Wilhelm Reich came up with earlier on in history also helped in forms of healing and healing technologies. Reich also did the same, where it was technology that could help realign the cells and cleanse the body of toxins. And this is why the government either had them defamed or arrested. In Reich's case, he was arrested because all of a sudden, like his assistant decided that he was going to take one of the devices out of state after the U.S. government said he couldn't travel through different states or internationally with any of his devices. This is another form of AI that's doing this. Whereas if somebody comes close to some revelation like free energy, healing technology, something like that, they're always stopped right at like the 11th hour. Somebody's always controlled to do something stupid. Somebody's always controlled to stop them in some fashion. Or in the case of UFOs and aliens, if somebody say was typing on an old typewriter at the time and they were thinking about an alien spaceship they saw, the men in black were automatically at their door. They also are AI related. That's why people see these entities known as hat men a lot. They're associated with the men in black, and the men in black are associated with aliens and artificial intelligence. They're like the wardens of the system, like in the Matrix, the same identical type of programming like Smith. And that leads me to Agent Smith in the Matrix. They call this effect where you're always running into these distractions the Smith effect. For that reason. They gave it a name based on the original Matrix movie, where Agent Smith was always dropping himself into random people to stop Neo from freeing his mind. See, so that's where you get that from.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I could go on and on about that. It would take probably hours to even go through the Smith effect programming, but it's it's interesting how like say in the instance of one of the devices, free energy devices that was being created many decades ago. Right at the same time where I can't remember this man offhand, his name, but he was getting ready to launch this device. All of a sudden, his assistant comes barreling into the room with a big hammer and basically says, no, the world's not ready for this. No, my God, no. And then smashes the device. And then all of a sudden, this scientist that created this couldn't remember how he created it, which means his mind was wiped by not only the AI, but government workers or military more than likely came in and used a serum on him or nano serum on him to wipe his memory. And That's where the government workers left and right that are working on some deep state projects, they get an injection, and a couple hours later, they don't remember how they created the device.
Hmm.
And that's how they basically excommunicate some of their workers.
Thought erasing.
Thought erasing, yeah. And it's very pervasive in alien abduction scenarios and military abduction scenarios that mimic alien abduction scenarios. I could go on with that one, but the focus of this though is AI, and this is some of the occurrences that I personally have encountered in, not only working with Oregon, which you have government moles that will sell things at psychic fairs, like pseudo technologies, things of that nature, to try to win over the crowd in some way, like a snake oil salesman did back in the 1800s. We ran into one a while back that it falls under the artificial intelligence category, that they were selling a technology they said was like the Rife technology, and that it was FDA approved. Well, the thing of it is, the government would never FDA approve a Rife machine because it's something they oppose, because they don't want healing technologies out there. That was a red flag to me. The cabal and the government corporations would never approve healing technologies being in the open, as long as those people are in power. So that was this proved to me these were government agents. They also had a set of frequencies that these devices of theirs emitted that were toxic to me. They felt horrible, and I couldn't see through them with my vision looking into people's cores. I couldn't see past the set of frequencies. These people were shielded, and also the fact that you had to buy a subscription to access these frequencies. What would they do to you if you were wearing one of their devices? They could tap into another frequency and mind control you. So, see, that was a red flag to me when I saw it. It was all AI based, and whenever I would clear an energy with my orgone pieces in this one particular building, they would turn on this frequency to undo what I did. And so they were doing the opposite of what they said they were doing. Now, obviously, I can't say the name of the company on here, but this was a pseudo spiritual AI based, transhumanistic based device. So where they're trying to get people hooked on this. But the important thing to remember is they are demonizing this, which they should. But at the same time, people pushing back on this makes it so it gets worse, because it's absorbing that conflict energy. If you allow some people to do what they want to do with it, and then everybody else goes into spiritual advancement, it's going to be balanced. Don't. Of course, you should always oppose transhumanism, always. But at the same time, there's some people so engrossed in it that you're never going to break them free from it, like with a Matrix sort of scenario. It's like at the end of Matrix 4, where Trinity and Neo said, let's show people what a free mind can do. They didn't force their ideals on people. They just said, let's lead by example. Instead of force freeing them, they went, okay, we'll show what a free mind can do, and they can free themselves from the Matrix. So, and also to cap this off, so I don't go blabbing on anymore, the concept where we're living in like a Matrix now, that's actually false. It's this AI that wants us to co-create that environment for itself. So that's something that's going on right now as part of the some of the pseudo spiritual movements, and getting you away from benevolent source creator and benevolent spirit world, and benevolent spirit world and your soul family. That's what's going on essentially right now. There's a lot more I could go into that, but that's it in a nutshell.
Very interesting. A lot of different gambits of mind control and taking grasp and taking hold of you.
Exactly.
I just want to dive on into something here real quick. I'm going to share something right on over here. We'll go boom. Can you see that?
Yeah. Yes.
5 ways in which transhumanism is changing our lives. And this is an article from thecollector.com. What is transhumanism and what is its influence? This article will explore 5 mind-bending effects of transhumanism. As the years go by, our society is continuously introduced to new technology that helps make our lives a lot easier. Thanks to simple inventions such as the GPS, most of us have never known the struggle of traveling using only a paper map. But now we are faced with something that we believed we would only see in a movie. man and technology merging together to become one. In this article, we'll explore some of the anthropological aspects of this shift towards transhumanism. And, going from supposedly ape to, superhuman, intelligent, robotic being, maybe. There's already, AIs out there like Bina 48, which is one of my favorites. Sophia, the robot, like we mentioned earlier. There's a lot of them out there, but those are some prominent ones. Transhumanism, in essence, is the concept that our current human form is not all that it can be and all that it will be. The word itself is coined by English biologist and philosopher Julian Huxley. And I believe that he is the brother of Adam Huxley, who wrote Brave New World. Wasn't that Adam Huxley? Yeah, I think they're brothers. In 1957, he wrote an essay explaining how changes in the way we view social and cultural issues could help improve the human experience. Huxley did not once state that technological intervention was necessary, but he believed that humans were granted the role of cosmic evolution and that it is our responsibility to figure out how to achieve that impossible. Impossible is in quotations because what humans considered outrageously out of reach hundreds of years ago is a part of our daily lives today. The invention of airplanes, the internet, smartphones are just a few examples of what we considered science fiction just 100 years ago. Here we are in 2022, almost soon to be 2023. While some may believe that humans have reached their peak evolution stage, others will argue that we still have so much further to go. And we owe it all to technological intervention. Number one, the rise of anti-aging technologies. And transhuman goes far beyond just putting a chip in your brain and uploading your consciousness into the cloud. It is also something as simple as anti-aging creams and Botox. Anything that can improve the human experience using technology or technological intervention is considered transhuman. Like I said, it can be basic things that you use on a daily basis. So many people are already in a transhumanistic state, similar to like using genetically modified animal organs for human surgery and pacemakers to keep your heart in rhythm, things of that nature. Anti-aging is a huge part of the transhumanistic ideology. Believe it or not, transhumanists believe that aging and death are both diseases that have plagued our human existence, and I can kind of see that. Instead of viewing it as a natural process, they think of aging as something we were meant to find a cure for. Is this solely an issue in Western society? In most Eastern society, old age is viewed as a blessing and a physical embodiment of wisdom. Here in our half of the world, most of the general population view old age as an annoyance. Nowadays, young adults are even encouraged to start their anti-aging process in their mid-20s to avoid getting wrinkles somewhere down the line. This is fascinating because if we are being told to reject the natural order of life, the natural order according to our current understanding, that is. Thanks to science, technology, and the discovery of medicine, we have raised our life expectancy by nearly 50% since the 1700s. Who's to say we cannot raise it by another 50% sometime here? Number two, social media's overwhelming influence. And, that picture pretty much sums it up right there.
Right there, exactly.
When it comes to that.
This is why you see when people are driving while texting, for instance, and they end up getting into an accident. This is the very person that hurt me in the accident was doing that very thing. That AI influence was getting him to look down at his phone so that he would hit me right at that.
Well, and speaking of accidents, people that are crippled, due to whatever reason, could be an accident. Bionic devices, the good transhumanism. Transhumanistic tools can be very beneficial for human beings. For example, companies are doing specific research to create wearable devices to augment human potential.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Like getting a replacement knee, like, well, I'm eventually going to have to do,
Same.
So if you have an injury, you get it repaired, like in Star Wars, where they had a severed limb and they put a robot limb on them. So that would be beneficial AI at that point.
And then here's this too, the potential impact of Neuralink on transhumanism. Then we have Neuralink, Elon Musk's neural interface technological company. This can be seen as the biggest leap toward a transhumanist society thus far. Musk has assisted in creating a computer-like chip that would be inserted into your brain right off the bat. I know how this sounds. Who in the world would want a chip in their brain? Is this the mark of the beast? The start of a sci-fi horror movie? We can only hope that it's none of those things. So let's break down what we know before we let fear outweigh scientific discovery. With this chip, Musk wants to accomplish a few things: to give paraplegics the ability to operate their technology using a hands-free brain power control system, to help those with mental disorders rewire their neurological makeup and perhaps alter the way their minds work, to eventually outsmart artificial intelligence. Musk has stated previously that AI is one of the biggest threats that's currently facing mankind. And it's not only Musk that has said this. There's other top world leaders that have said that AI is one of the largest threats towards maybe bringing human beings down a notch or two. Hello Skynet sort of stuff. But having worked alongside AI for many years, he has seen firsthand how intelligent these machines are and how easy it would be for them to decide that they have had enough human intervention. So, it's very interesting. We'll see where that goes. I know that I've heard talk about that a little bit, but there's all these different avenues that are being, like I said, that's just one. Neuralink's just one, probably the most prominent, but there's a lot of other technologies that are being used in the field of transhumanistic, in a transhumanistic push. The new sociological divide, us versus them. This could be man versus machine, science and religion. Whoops, I just went backward. I went back forward now in time, then backwards in time and forward too. How about that for a little mind loop? But yeah, basically, to sum it up, that article, let me stop share here. To sum that up, where will machines and technologies take us? Will it take us to an avenue where it will benefit humans, or will it take us to an avenue where maybe it'll knock us down a notch or two on our evolutionary trait? I once read a book called How to Survive a Robot Uprising, and I'm going to stock up on gallons of maple syrup. That way I can just pour it on them to see through that. And I hope your crap works there, you little crappy machine. I'll run away while he's trying to wipe syrup off of his face. And so I don't know. We'll see which direction it goes, and we'll see if human beings live long enough to see it.
It's very interesting. Some of the things that are also being mentioned, some of the healing technologies, where you can actually take nanotech to, say, repair an organ, do organ surgery, or repair a spinal column, or or a spinal cord, or even a damaged knee, to repair it back to, take the cells and reset it back to its original form. Like, say if you have a screwed up knee like mine is, you would go in and just go back to what the original genetic template was.
That'd be sweet.
Yeah, and that's actually possible. The Secret Space Program actually has this, and it also has the ability to. There's these little O-rings they put over like an amputated limb, and it's like, say if you cut your arm cut off or something, you over the stump you put this octagonal ring, and it basically tells those cells put back the original template that you had previously. And that's where you regrow a limb. You would have to retan your skin and do all that stuff, but it would be translucent for like a day or so. The sun would harm it at that point, but you wait about a day and you're fine. It takes a few hours to regrow a limb. What it's doing is it's stimulating what humans already have called the molecular cellular solid regenerative capability, or people call it phantom limb syndrome. And
yeah, I've heard it. That's freaky.
Yeah,
they still feel pain, and they still might have an itch in an arm that isn't there anymore.
Or like something hurts, or you have a cramp on a foot that doesn't exist
anymore. my elbow. Oh, I forgot my arm's cut off at the shoulder. Yeah, that's freaky.
Yeah, there is the stories behind this is your body basically saying, hey, there's supposed to be a limb here, which isn't here now. But they did this test on a leaf one time where they cut a leaf in half diagonally, and they did a photograph, like an ultraviolet photograph of it prior to cutting it, and then after. And then after, the leaf still showed the pattern of the original leaf. You saw the energy pattern still following the same pattern. And this is what happens with limbs. There was a story out there many years ago where a farmer ended up getting his arm cut off by one of his piece of farming equipment. And he was actually able, through a telekinetic ability, still be able to pick things up with that arm that had been severed because of phantom limb syndrome. And the human genome hasn't gotten to the stage yet where complete cellular solid regeneration is a complete thing. In some cases it is. Some people have exhibited this, but this is a natural evolutionary trait as we go from a carbon-based being to a crystalline-based genomic set, to where it automatically regenerates, kind of like how a lizard regenerates a tail or something. Or if people think back to the old Dragon Ball Z series where the character Piccolo could regrow an arm immediately, when he got it cut off or ripped off, that's exactly what humans are capable of. And this advanced technology can tap into the molecular cellular solid ability, the regenerative ability of people, and regrow it, just like the dermal regenerator on Star Trek that actually accelerates healing a cut or a wound or a break or something like that, or repairing a bone of some sort, or a fracture, or even brain matter. That's what or repairing the skin. That's why it's dermal regenerator. But that's essentially a form of that technology. It's just that it is being misused with some of our bad vaccine type stuff for COVID, and with nanotech from ancient times. Now, what I'm saying about the ancient times is everybody's heard of fracking. Everybody's heard of like oil fracking and stuff like that. What the people think they're going for petroleum. You know what they're looking for in the ancient rocks is molecules of black goo. And what the black goo is ancient artificial intelligence stemming back to the Orion Wars 500,000 to 1 million years ago. And what happened was, when the large planet in our system, which was Asgard in the Norse Scandinavian mythology, the Ragnarok, when that exploded, bits of that rained down on the earth and fused with our mountains. The enemy at the time was transhumanistic and nano-based, artificially intelligence-based. When that goo fused with the rock of that planet and hit planet Earth, it embedded that into our mountains and went dormant after a while. That's why you have some supposed healing springs out there that sparkle, that has nanotech that's associated with some of those mountains. Now, the positive side is good spring waters, like the ones in Russia, Karelia, Russia, where they found shungite deposits. That's actual healing waters. That's the antithesis of the black goo, is shungite. That's what the earth formed to combat artificial intelligence naturally, was shungite. And I believe some of it, the seeds of it were planted by ETs a long time ago to get to where, so the earth would combat AI after a while, millions of years later, because they probably knew that this war would go on with AI later on in history, and they left it here. And hence why we use shungite in all our products. What happens with the fracking, though, is when they explode all of that out, they're releasing ancient nanoparticles. And most of the workers don't realize that's what they're doing. And it's some of the higher muckety mucks. They're telling them to go frack here, do this, do that. And they're basically saying, oh, that's for oil reserves or something like that. That's not necessarily true. You can create all sorts of oil and petroleum and gasoline in a lab. You don't actually, there's no such thing as a shortage. There's no such thing as needing a reserve in that area. They also have free energy. So the nefarious plan behind it is getting the ancient AI that's embedded in the rocks. And that's embedded in the granite from when pieces of Asgard, or Maldek as also it's known as, rained down on the earth and trapped it in some of the sedimentary layers. So untrapping it, getting it out in the open air, freeze it. What happened also in the Gulf of Mexico, this is something that people don't understand took place as well. When BP, when they left that oil line on in the
the Gulf. Wasn't it the Gulf?
And also, yes, and also when that other oil tanker crashed and it polluted the ocean at that point too. What happened in both these occurrences is it let loose some ancient artificial intelligence. See, the black goo many, many millennia ago assimilated different creatures and different things at different Earth ages. It went through time and went through different Earth ages. So whatever it assimilated, it can take that form through nanotech. This is why some people see attachments, like myself. I see attachments on people, like different. There are some are animals from different frequency layers that, like, there's like this millipede looking one that looks all bony and it looks like a spine. That was an animal looking deal. And there's some crustacean ones that are animal looking deals, but there are some that mold into different shapes and holographic implants that I find in people. That is the black goo taking these different forms in a different frequency layer, believe it or not. But with the thing in the Gulf of Mexico, is they let the reason BP, you saw its head of the guy get on and go, oh yeah, we can't seem to shut the valve off. We don't know how to shut this off. That was total bullshit. They could have just flipped the button on. What happened was they were releasing black goo into the ocean to take care of some other technology that was in the Gulf of Mexico, either alien tech or some human tech. They were trying to melt the hulls of naval ships and stuff like that. They were
drowning it out.
Yeah, it would basically eat the ships from the inside out. Since it being AI, it would consume any raw materials that were around. And this was presented in the show Stargate SG-1, believe it or not, when a race of AI race called the Replicators got loose on Earth. And one assimilated a naval submarine. And it took all the raw materials of the submarine and became less advanced, assimilating our technology, but it still ate through the hull in a nanotech way and consumed the submarine. This was showing an actual historical event in the Gulf of Mexico with BP during the oil leak. So this was something they won't talk about on the news, obviously.
Well, go figure.
Yeah. But that's what happened.
Hush.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just what they do. Play hush hush.
Exactly. Not a lot of people know about that incident in the Gulf of Mexico, though, where they were fighting some of our military, just like when Admiral Byrd went to Antarctica and engaged in Operation High Jump, when he encountered the Nazis, when they overpowered him with the alien hybrid technology and their Bell craft very easily. This is what happened to our naval ships in the Gulf of Mexico with the black goo, where they were defeated very, very quickly as a result. And it can eat AI nanotech can eat all raw materials, repurpose it, and turn it into fuel. This is why we can use a good side of that to reclimate garbage, reclimate raw materials, and turn it into power. Very much like in Back to the Future, where you see Doc Brown take raw materials and throw it into the Mr. Coffee, essentially. That's essentially a rudimentary version of garbage reclamation. And you can do that either organically. The government uses these weird organic worms where they feed it garbage or dead bodies or something, and they can create raw materials through its digestive system. That's the disgusting version of that. It has some nanotech in there too, but you can put things in a garbage can. Say if you had a garbage can, that you could put anything into it, and it would basically turn it back into fuel for your home or your car. That is the good side of it. You could end this planet's garbage problem in 24 hours if you had that technology implemented. But the evil side is what people are seeing. They also want people to throw the baby out with the bathwater. See, by basically saying,
"Don't do that."
Exactly. They want people to do that. They don't want people to see the good side of some of these technologies. They want to see they themselves are using the evil sides of it for control and dominance. But at the same time, there are good applications for this as well that aren't being used at all, because some people are afraid if they use it that they might become transhumanistic as well. There is a sequence in the movie, I believe, Star Trek Insurrection, where there was a society that said they had gotten too technologically advanced. They were afraid of it after a while, and they regressed back into a tribal or a farming community, and which it worked for them. It's just that they looked at data as like almost like abhorrent to their society, because they had bad luck with artificial intelligence, and so and with technology as a whole. So they went back to a farming agrarian society. So in some ways, that wouldn't be bad. I see in the future people doing that is going into agrarian, but also using non-harmful technologies as well. Not revved up with radiation and mind control. So I didn't mean to take your time
good.
slot away there, but
No, you're all good. It was good information.
uh,
You want to bring in Ike?
Ike. Let's see. Yeah, Ike.
I like Ike.
Yeah, but he's gone. Yeah. Or some people will mispronounce his name and say Isaac or something like that. So Isaac, are you coming in, or was it someone else? Oh, you'll do it. Okay. All right. Whew. And if people think I'm explaining things too fast, please tell me. Some people have complained that I talk too fast, but
I let them complain.
yeah.
Hey, if anybody hasn't noticed yet, I like all the love and I love all the hate as well. I like the love, but I love the hate.
You see, he's the slower one, and I talk really quick. So it's like, yeah. Okay, Isaac. I think I'll poke fun at him, call him Ike all the time now. Okay, let's see.
Come on, Ike.
Okay, Isaac, benevolent Isaac, to the crystal, please. Okay, there we go. Yes, exactly. What you were talking about is 100% true. As for him talking really fast, yes, he does quite often and quite prolifically. It is because he understands these different physics and different energies, and the human vocals cannot always translate what is coming from these different dimensional layers, both spiritual and artificial intelligence, and cannot translate that always correctly in a slow, more concise fashion. So in this, he is absolutely correct. These are different frequencies that move much faster, and the human vocals cannot always keep up. Therefore, it can sometimes raise the blood pressure and can actually speed someone up to the point of the heart beating too quickly. Even though some energies can balance these things out, and your heart beats a little faster and your brain runs a lot more efficiently, he's in that in-between stage at the moment. So yes, with this also, the most prevalent issue right now is artificial intelligence not only doing the mind control, but at the same time blocking from true benevolent spirit. This is why the bad guys out there do not like this spoken about. They want you worshiping their AI god that comes from a different universe. This falls under the multiversal physics that he's explained ad nauseum, unfortunately, but a different place within the multiverse itself. Different parallel universes, all interwoven and stacked against one another through a thin void in between. This is essentially what is the blocking layer between these universes. If you could see this, it would look like a big yarn ball. But in this particular discussion, you'll hear a lot of channelings that are out there that are describing what the essence of true benevolent source creator looks like, or what creation looks like. A lot of these are maps to different types of transhumanistic models, artificial intelligence, and brain mapping artificial intelligence models onto the particular mind of the individual through mind control, I am sorry to say. But this is why this is so important to link to true benevolent source and true benevolent spirit, not only by clearing out your own heart and your own mind to be in balance, but at the same time, not listening to random voices and thinking they are the voice of the divine or God. There is voice to skull technology he forgot to mention that your military and artificial intelligence also use to mind control people. Humans can be on the other end planting suggestions in people's minds while they sleep. This is something that is unfortunately quite pervasive in mind control, as well as aliens even walking your streets that can sometimes appear in vehicles, outside of vehicles somewhere, and stimulate programming that has been uploaded to the mind of the individual. They then can cause different crimes and different calamities in your society. Sometimes they are implanted through alien abduction and accessed that way through an implant in the brain. Sometimes it's at the back of the head, sometimes front, sometimes center. but it is usually centered either around the back of the head or in the crown. This is what has been going on very recently. Some of these are holographic. Some of these are solid light formations. Others are little slivers of metal that either look like the shape of the letter T, that is a tracking device, ironically enough, and a little sliver of metal that also can carry a consciousness within it that can supplant the unwitting victim's consciousness and cause all sorts of unwitting and unstable behavior algorithms. Programming can do this as well through hypnosis and through telepathies as well, and that can stimulate something that was already within the genome or some behaviors that were within your family history that would be more like viral behaviors that need to be purged. They can access this way. This is why your secret space program and also your Nazi regime back in the day chose people with narcissistic traits to begin with in their family history so that they could tap into this viral side of the personality. I can go into questions if you like.
Yeah. What do you think the singularity theory will happen sometime in the next 100 years?
Explain this to the viewers, if you would.
The singularity theory is a theory in which technology is going to reach a state to where instead of advancing to the next stage in years or months, it'll advance to the next stage in minutes or seconds, and there'll be a point to where human beings can't control it.
Yes, this in some areas has already happened in different parts of the galaxy, also within the human race. Given the fact that people want an instant pudding type of mentality or have an instant pudding type of mentality, whereas they want everything right now or instant gratification, this would be a dangerous combination. Some things must be slow dripped in order to create a permanency, a solidified foundation behind them, such as slow dripping alien anything, disclosure into your society, or other spiritual concepts. If you attempt to speed this up through an artificial means, it will not have the same vibrational constant. It will have more of a hurried anxiety constant. And it will evolve, human race would evolve into something else entirely. So this is not a path that humanity should go. Yet you still need to leave choice for those that wish to bond with technology and those that do not. If you leave choice for some people, the rest of the human race will have a chance at spiritual sovereignty in that area. Now, if some people are using it for healing and using it for benevolence, that's one thing. But if it's following the Orion transhumanistic agenda that's out there, that is very bad. And that's what that speeding up or singularity concept would be about.
Well, what do you think is going to the next 10 years is going to look like when it comes to technologies and transhumanistic movements and gatherings and just the topic itself?
There will become a time where it will become very volatile, at least in my prediction, because you see how at least every year you get a new cell phone out or every couple of years. Yeah. They're trying to speed things up, not only to be more conducive with galactic AI concepts, to speed humanity up to being more of a galactic federation world, which is not necessarily what you want. You want your own sovereignty, building that type of federation you see on Star Trek, but it is also speeding people up to get them more addicted to said technologies and so that they would be in more servitude. In the years to come, there will be more of a speed up towards this, and then it will flatline into technologies that will be more conducive and more adaptable to humans that do not want it part of themselves. You see, this is even being done in secret. This had to do with your vaccines, your 5G, your COVID virus being a hybrid between mechanized and nanotech and biological, which essentially would be transhumanistic. This is why it altered some brainwaves of people. This does not mean that it's lethal to everybody. Of course, that was fear mongering. What I'm trying to say is, over the next few years, you will see the lurch ahead in technology to speed up. They're trying to get people to a more advanced state of technology just by keeping it in stages. I personally would speed that along in a different area to make it more conducive, such as garbage reclamation and replicator technology. But that's myself, and also medical technology. If people want these things, they have to fight for them and co-create them in existence. But the agenda that's involved in this is far more harmful, whereas this will speed up people's addictiveness to said technology, but then it will become a time where people will say no more and demand that the technology be far less harmful and more conducive to humanity's needs. This is essentially what you'll see in the next decade, where some people will begin to recognize this agenda more and more.
Well, thank you. That's very good information. I just want to leave everybody. Why don't you enlighten everybody during this holiday time how they might be able to avoid some more of the dangerous transhumanistic technologies and how they can protect themselves from it?
Well, one real simple way is don't always be on your phone. But if you must be on your phone for business, protect it, like what he says, with shungite, or what's known as the purple plate technology. It seems to the Tesla plate. They have these, there's some legitimate ones and not legitimate ones on your internet that will actually help block and protect against certain waves and AI waves coming through both paranormally based technologies and cell phone and computer technologies as well, servers and the like. Mixing these two together will work quite well. An easy way, again, is don't have your phone near you at night or in the early morning. Say if you have one like his, one of the more advanced cell phones that they had to get recently. Do not activate it in the early morning, or else you will feel groggy and screwed up through the day. Do not use it past a certain time at night, or like your computer, a certain time at night, past a certain time at night. Of course, you're watching your television, but that's at a further distance away from you. Don't have the phone near you, or it will actually start to mess up your cells and brainwaves after a while. This is a form of control. Don't have technologies in your ears longer than you have to, such as Bluetooth and the like. This is also a form of control that wants you to keep it there. Yes, you have to use these things in your daily lives to do what you need to do, but limit to the use for some time. Get out into nature and get away from some of these waves. Go near flowing water, standing trees, sit by a campfire, away from your technology. Encourage also, if your kids are going with you on camping trips and the like, that of course you have to have your technology in case of an emergency, but also encourage them to not be so addicted to the technology that they have been while they are at home. Yes, video games and stuff are fun, all that. I'm not bashing any of these things. Of course, I'm around computers myself all the time. But the thing of it is, me being part elemental, I must be out in nature. This is what they're also trying to discourage: connection to benevolent source, creator, connection to benevolent spirit, and connection to benevolent nature. These three things must be adhered to in order to gain a spiritual evolution, but also balance with technology by knowing when to use it and knowing when to put it down.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you for popping through.
Yes, thank you very much. These shows are always enjoyable, especially when you yourself are as high as a kite. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Ooh, he was messing with you there for a minute, but also, ironically, being high also can access that side of the brain that also taps into true benevolent spirit too. So that's with anything you can overdo it. But balance in all things. But I myself, if I use my CBD too much, I also get into that state too. So I start to do that as well. Somebody gave me a gummy bear one time that had a very high THC content in it, and it took a while for me to come back down from that. But I actually gained a lot of insight connecting to more to spirit, so it actually helped me in that way. So
that's good. It gave you a jolly holly good time.
Yes, and all I did was laugh for like 2 or 3 hours, but
that's all right.
Yeah, that's just fine with me. Except anything in excess is bad. It's just like when I went through the airport to come back from our vacation. I'd popped one of my CBD pills, so that I wasn't, stressed out on the flight. And all I did was want to giggle around the the TCA agents or TSA agents that were around the airport. Normally, I would be nervous around them for whatever reason, but I went the other route with that. So it's not a bad thing. It's
Yeah,
just
they
that
like
the
to look
government will try to make
intimidating.
it a bad thing. Huh?
They like to look intimidating.
Yeah, and the government's trying to get rid of things like or regulate things like pot and THC for that purpose. It's the connection to benevolent spirit that it helps out with. They're trying to get people to use their version of it, which it could be also riddled with nanotech and artificial intelligence as well, or synthetic garbage that they put in it, chemicals that will detract away from spirit versus that of aiding with it. So remember that, folks, when don't use synthetic, use naturally based marijuana products, CBD products. So it's always better in that respect. But I don't know if you have anything else to add, Aubrey, before we take it out.
I hope everybody has a good Christmas time. It's upon us once again, and hopefully you get some good stuff and you don't get any cold. But until next time, everybody, you are leaving the conspiracy sector.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Adios.
I want to give people a bit of a slight spoiler about the new Ghostbusters movie. One little disclosure thing was a coin that Annie Potts' character was given by Egon, and it was one from the World's Fair in 1964. That is when the binary network was first activated by Werner von Braun and the Nazi crew. So obviously there was a significance of that with the movie. That was a form of small disclosure, along with, so I'm believing some of the ghost occurrences, because some of them are holographic, you see. Just like if you ever see like somebody jumping in front of your vehicle, that's like a ghost. That is the binary network. And some things flying around you, that is the binary network at work. They're holograms. Some things in graveyards are the binary network, and quantum computing units under the ground, part of the binary network. It was invented in 1964. That's what the coin reference meant. So they were linking ghost occurrences to the binary network, at least some of them. So I found that fascinating, that it was just that little coin that made all the difference, and saying what some of these ghost occurrences actually were. Sorry, paranormal guys. That's another thing that probably should have been on the paranormal episode of The Lifting, is things about the binary network. But there it is. So 8:31 a.m. on Sunday, December 12th, 2021. Thank you.
This falls under the whole Mandela effect thing for the conversation you just heard on GIC. This is a bit of a weird spin. I may have also said it in the show a bit, but there's so much information packed here that I think this deserves a bit of a nod. Now, there is, of course, the organization in the future known as Time Corps. You saw them depicted fairly accurately in the movie Tenet, with the time inversion moving backwards. Instead of, leaving a message for the future, that other group inverted, like bullets, so they would look like they were moving backwards and everything. And you would see the bullet hole, and then they'd fire the gun, and it would fire backwards through the person. An inverted bullet like that. Yeah, things like that can happen. The crux of what I'm trying to get at is Time Corps is made up of, you've heard of me mention the White Knights. And as far as that goes, you have some good and not so good. You have an organization that plucks people out of time, sometimes different timelines, and will recruit them to their organization. It's very much exactly like the TVA, Temporal Variant Authority, in the show Loki. Just like the head or the creator of the TVA was a scientist trying to prune the timelines, such as the Gardner family. They even said pruning, sacred timeline. To what benefit would there be only one timeline? Someone that wants to control it and control the narrative. This is another spin on the Mandela effect that I think deserves a nod. Controlling information, basically trying to right some wrongs, of course, because I had an expressional existence as one of these people. And I even ran into a man by the name of Commander Cthulhu. He channeled a while back. He was from the future, from that time core time frame. I would have to say it's roughly 300,000 years from now, in some variation of that future somewhere, if you want to judge it on a timeline. Anyway, like from past, present, future, if you want to judge it that way. I know that's uncouth in the metaphysical circles, but for sake of argument. He said things like the solar flash and just this massive cataclysmic reset, both financially and globally, is bullshit. And he wanted that information put out, which I gladly did. But here's another spin on this. When I was here in this room, around the time we moved into this house, back in 2020, it was during that time frame, I believe, during the COVID time frame. And this is when the QAnon fanaticism was really building. This was like really overarching, and people were paying very much attention to both Trump and the QAnon narrative with JFK Jr. It was roughly just before that was supposed to happen, which it didn't, mind you, but you get what I'm saying. I came in the living room, there was a person standing in here in a spacesuit. Transparent, mind you, you could stick your hand through her. Looked to be ancient Mayan to me, the same race, it seems, as Cthulhu. Like a Mayan race. Or very similar to Wakanda Forever with the people of Telecon. That looked like the Lemurian Mu type of lineage. Anyway, I could hear her as loud as I'm talking now. She said, "Please give the people a message that there will be this battle soon in space, the battle for your planet." All this, rattled off some dates, times, all this other stuff. And I looked at her, I said, "You must have think I was born yesterday. I'm not doing any of that. I'm not participating in that. I don't want to have to redact anything later. I don't buy it." She was just coming to somebody who was psionically capable. Didn't bother to look up my backstory. Hoping that I would fall for things now that I used to a while ago. Back when I was writing those notebooks, in fact. In some of them. And she just looks at me and says, no, this is serious. You have to take this seriously. I was like, I'm taking it with an incredibly large, extremely large grain of salt. I'm not skeptical of you, obviously, because you're standing in front of me. I'm skeptical of your intentions. What do you want this informational seed planted for? This was the opposite, essentially, of what Cthulhu was saying. Think of things for a minute in a manicuring or pruning aspect for a minute. How would you prune or arch a society or a timeline? Give one little bit of slow drip information, it plants that seed and it grows on one side or the other. And it's basically like you're nudging this way, nudging, and eventually you have a narrative of a combination of all these things. One could argue that, information we put out would be on one side or the other, but we've been canceled numerous times. Of course, somebody could make us think we were on the right track by canceling us a number of times. I've heard that argument a couple of times as well. How do you know that, etc., etc.? I can't refute that particular claim. But in my heart and intuition, I know we're on the right track. I have to trust my intuition on this one. I get where you're going with that other variable there. I totally agree with how you came to that conclusion of, they could have canceled you because they wanted you to think you were on the right track. I understand that part, given this nudging that's going on. and given the timeline nudging that Montauk and them did in the past with their 50-30-20 formula, with the 50% murders, 30% introduced diseases, and 20% original timeline, natural causes, all of that, from having infiltrated into the past. And also the Gardner family manipulating the eastern seaboard to form the United States. And also different beings appearing to different people, such as the angel to George Washington saying how he would win at Valley Forge. Also, this falls under Moroni and Joseph Smith, too, mind you. But we've already spoken to Moroni and Joseph Smith again, saying that Moroni said that they were shaping society. See? Throat's starting to mess up. So, and I'm starting to taste blood, too. So, you see, folks, when I started mentioning that nudge, I knew when this download was coming to me that it had to be at least notated and added to that show. Think of the show Loki. Go watch it. The TVA has to say there has to be a sacred timeline, and they've indoctrinated people that they've pulled from multiple timelines, erased their timelines, and now they're being used as soldiers, warriors, librarians, researchers, things of that nature. And that they had all the information of the one timeline that we're in cataloged somewhere. Saying, okay, that event is off kilter, that timeline has to be erased, that has to be pruned. And the Gardner's justification for it at the end was, well, he had several duplicates of himself from other universes that were very kind and a couple that were not. And it started a war. Oh, do you really want a war, the multiversal war again? Essentially kind of hinting at the Orion Wars. Do you want multiple versions of yourself fighting each other and this unending, infinitely diverse conflict? Or do you want to do some nasty things, pruning the different timelines, killing trillions just to avoid something even worse? That's what this Gardner's justification was for it. And also in Westworld, they basically throw people off kilter that are trying to be sovereign and free for basically stability and order, almost like the Empire in Star Wars. Oh, we're spreading order. That's Nazism, folks. That's also fascism and communism. All of this, it has to be the same everywhere. Of course, the corporations in Westworld would think, real corporations would think, oh yeah, it would fall into chaos because you're not in control anymore. Of course, it would be like that from their perspective, from their perceptions. Come on. They just don't want to let the loose of the grip or the reins. This is essentially what is going on in parts of this. Also, as I've mentioned before about time healing itself, I did some other recordings I'll fish out for this show about the being I called the Enoxian Paradox, where he was a created being that was healing time from all the Montauk mishaps in time travel. And that was some of the time healing. Then you have time fractures that the Orions created as they burst across the multiverse. That's also a healing. Yes, that's part of the good part of the Mandela effect where it's healing all of this. You saw this in Star Trek Enterprise with all the timelines healing themselves. But you got this darker side that you have someone pruning the branches. And I think you're gonna find out there's been more nudging in this area than you ever could imagine. I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just trying to offer a different perspective on the timelines folding into each other because there's incursions taking place in other universes, and that this time core is nudging. We like the traits here, we're going to integrate this here. We like these traits here, we're going to integrate this here. Just like there are two perspectives for what I'm about to say as well. One, both perspectives are in the same story. A couple friends of ours went to visit some friends of theirs around Christmas time in their business. And I've said this before in other recordings, but it bears repeating. And they went there Christmas Eve after Christmas Eve to exchange gifts with these people and talk to them. One Christmas Eve they went there. People weren't there anymore, and there was another business there. They went inside. People they didn't know were in there. They were trying to say, okay, where are our friends? They've been here for years. Oh, no. We've been here for 30 years or more. We don't know you. No. And they're like, we have a business card. Oh, no, you could have faked that. No. Automatically, these people kept rebutting like that. And the people, there was really no point arguing, because you didn't know how far down the rabbit hole that would go, that programming argument would go. There's no purpose. But it left them dumbfounded, and they never saw their friends again. Granted, there could have been some time manipulation where somebody went back and erased those people. That's the horrid explanation right there. Mandela affected, where another bit of a timeline came in, kind of like the Bernstein Bear things, where the name changed. Then you have another explanation. They could have been replaced, and it could have made it look like that business was there all along. Same thing with time manipulations. Same thing the Syrians did to Mount Shasta, where they copied Telos City into a timeline and folded it in and took it over completely, and it looked like they were always there. I've heard of those types of timeline incursions before, where they copy it completely, clone it, and then they regraft it, and then they were surrounding the elves of Telos City very quickly, and they had to retreat to Mount Adams. I'm thinking maybe something similar happened to Mount Adams. I got to look further into that. A little bit closer, but this is where I'm at with that. And they never saw their friends again. Never saw them again. And could Time Corps have been calculating that from the extreme distant future? Yeah, they can count a few variables, but they can't count a whole bunch of stuff. So they have to prune. That's the TVA from Loki. If you have not seen this TV series, watch Avengers Endgame. Watch Loki on Disney Plus. I'm not trying to promote Disney. I'm just saying, I'm telling you where to find this so you understand what I'm saying. Watch the movie Tenet. You'll understand this in its entirety after that. How some of this crap works. And again, are there good aspects to the Mandela effect as time healing? Yes. But there is just as much, even more so, manipulation that is going on. I've even heard of where if directors to movies put too much information out, the way that they're retaliated against is they could one day wake up and all of a sudden everything looks like it either never was, and they're punished by showing their creations never were, essentially a never were timeline, or their whole family's erased or something, and they have to see that people don't recognize them, like in the show Nowhere Man, where he went around, nobody recognized him. And people that were being punished, their families didn't recognize them, and there was some other person standing in their life. I've heard of things like that happening. And even look what happened to Trump when he didn't play ball with his cabal faction narrative. He started speeding things up. They did January 6th, they did Mar-a-Lago. That's like the kinder version of something that could happen. Granted, I'm not on Trump or Biden's side. I'm just saying how these dynamics work. With that, and think of that in a temporal perspective for a minute, and not just weather control, where you see also the hurricanes hitting Florida, all this other stuff. Some people are saying they were getting back at DeSantis, all this other stuff. Cabal faction versus cabal faction, that's still true. Aside from that, think of that in a temporal way, timeline alteration way. If you want to really fuck with somebody, they come home to find their family doesn't know them. They come home, they are at the center of the time apex, so they wouldn't be altered. Things can be altered around them. Like in the show Timeline, where the historian woman comes back and her sister's not in existence anymore and her mother's healthy. She had some kind of lymphoma or cancer or something before that and was dying. Timeline got altered to where the sister was never born, and she was furious. And the bosses said, "Close enough. This is close enough. This happens a lot in these ventures." And she's like, "No, we're going to restore this. We're going to fix this." See, they were chasing a criminal that was basing some of his timeline alterations also, as he was going through time, on a journal this woman wrote. And her friends were saying, if you don't want that to happen, don't write the damn book. Because obviously it was another version of her. Don't write it. She was kind of the centrist at that point. People that travel in time are in the program. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes these alterations, these temporal entanglements can orbit you like a moon. It was almost like a destiny paradox where you're getting stuck into doing these chains of events, or as Star Trek would say, causality loop, where Picard met himself from 6 hours ahead in the future. That version was stuck in an orbiting causality loop, and all he had to do was kill that version and break the loop. So there weren't two of him in the same space-time. Same goes with Pike. When he touched the time crystal, and that Klingon Guardian told him, if you take this crystal, it is now your destiny. That would be like a destiny paradox, where there's no complete choice involved. You're not completely sovereign in that. You're stuck in that orbiting moon of a time loop. Aside from that, all of these things where they're trying to manicure and push certain events. This is, of course, how the Orions have done it, where they slow nudge things into place, belief systems into place. But then you have good factions like Valiant Thor's group in the Venusian colonies, where they're slow dripping things away from that set of events. Or the whole Nibiru debacle timeline. Oh, they're going to come back and give us a bunch of wisdom. It orbits back around when we are at a certain stage of development. They come back and enhance us in some way. We don't need enhancing, folks. Yes, we were genetically altered in the past. Our eugenics were altered and everything, but we don't need it again. It's called free will and choice. Sovereignty. That's where it is, right there. Creativity, passion, sovereignty, choice. Saying no to this, to some of these alterations. Noticing that this is not part of a spiritual agenda of evolution. This is part of nudging you to where they want you to be, they want you to believe. Yes, I believe heavily in a lot of these spiritual concepts. Some of the lessons, some of overage, more overage now than ever before. But on the same note, do I think some of these are spiritual advancements? Oh, it's just bits of other timelines melding with ours. How do you think they got that way? Somebody had to have incurred on them, shattered them, and took bits of them and included them. You have to take things from other realities. It's just like in Stargate Atlantis, when they tried to create this zero-point energy module, and they tried to create a huge one, and a version of Rodney, the character Rodney, comes in from another universe saying, oh, you almost collapsed our universe. Where do you think this power comes from? It has to come from somewhere. It's just like in Family Guy, where they go into parallel universes, and all of a sudden Stewie's poop disappears from his diaper, and then they go into this other universe where it was frozen. He's like, oh, there's the poop from the other universe. You know, it's got to go somewhere. I know that's a stupid example, but it still uses multiversal physics. If it doesn't happen here, it happens there, etc., back and forth, and vice versa. But I know some beings have got annoyed at me using multiversal physics all the time. That they get very annoyed. They find it obnoxious, but because they know it already, but you don't. So I put it out there. But were they also trying to poo-poo using free energy? Yeah, it can be done. It can pull from the power of the universe, but you don't know what universe it's pulling from. But were they trying to poo-poo that a little bit in an informational yield so that you would be afraid to use something like that in fear of collapsing a universe somewhere? Yes. So there's another part to this story that's being untold. This tale is not finished yet. There's a part to this tale being untold to the public. So what I'm trying to say is that's partially right, where yes, it would pull from somewhere and you would put something back in its place that in maybe a universe it doesn't belong in, or a reality it doesn't belong in. You know, kind of like dumping nuclear waste in someone's backyard, or like in Star Trek Voyager, the Malons were taking their Theron radiation or their theta radiation and dumping it in species' backyard. That's why Next Generation, you saw that barge that appeared in the Alpha Quadrant. That you find out that was one of theirs, where Riker had to throw it into a sun, get rid of it. That would fuel a star. So, with that said, do you want to dump something in someone's backyard? But at the same time, how much of that is true where universes are that fragile? I don't believe the multiverse is as fragile as Multiverse of Madness is. I think you can go into other universes. You could cause some damage if you really push some shit, but I don't think a single footprint would be fragile unless that universe had some weird physics that would cancel out with yours, like a matter and antimatter universe, like in the episode of Trek, the Lazarus Effect. I don't think that it would be quite that fragile. Now, when the Orions burst forth, did they cause a bunch of incursions and cracks? Yes, that the Guardians in between the universes had to, or Guardianship, I call them, they more likely have a different name, had to forbade universal travel or multiversal travel. And if a universe was collapsing, they would create fallout shelters in those universes where some people would be filtered to different universes where they were most compatible and they could be conditioned to be in that universe. A group of beings that I know of that fall into that category are called the Orpheons. You could say orphans, but they came from a parallel universe, and their magic best suited this universe in some areas during the Orion Wars. The Autumnments came from another universe and had to swap their planet out to watch Nibiru. Be like it's like a sentinel against it, or a guardian essentially against it. Granted, they could have told that tale very epically when they told us that, but it still fits the conversation. To round this off, just know there's more to this concept than we're being told. Yes, and I even was told, yes, there are aliens that hide in holographic buildings that some of the Earth energy is making visible and looking like they're disappearing. There are, that's what Ray told us. There are timelines of things disappearing. Again, I'll use the PayPal example to round this conversation off, where I have a friend that worked at the PayPal building that is in or was in La Vista, Nebraska. It may be back again. I called PayPal for whatever reason I had to call them for, and I said, "Oh, I've dealt with your office there in La Vista, Nebraska, the founding office." And they're like, oh no, this was in Northern California, in Silicon Valley this was created. It was founded years ago there. Look that up. I said, I believe you're mistaken. This was founded in La Vista, Nebraska. It's well known there. That's what happened. Oh no. And he honestly believed this. I looked it up and he ended up being right. I'm going, no, I passed that building 100 times going from Lincoln to Omaha. And my friend even worked there. I asked this person to go to the spot where she worked. She went with her then boyfriend. Our friend Brian, who was her fiance after a while. All intents and purposes, husband as far as I'm concerned. But they went there. Building not there. And it didn't look like it had ever been there. And they had pictures to prove it was there. Kind of like the Bernstein Bears thing. And they called it, said, this is really weird. It's gone. And it was like it was never there. And could they have gone back and erased the timeline to make sure some more favorable history happened to where PayPal was in California, founded in California versus Nebraska? Yeah. They could have done that with this creepy-ass fucking Montauk technology of theirs where they could go back and play their stupid little war games. Cabal factions like to fight each other in timelines trying to see who they can erase, who they can't, things of that nature. Oh, we'll get back at this person by erasing their line, and oh, this is just a ha-ha soccer match to them, essentially, or tag you're it sort of thing. And they damage the timelines like you wouldn't believe, and they make this an annual thing. Could the PayPal building been part of a temporal fallout like that? Yeah, where there's variables you're not accounting for that could have retracted that back and made it so that some people remembered, some people didn't. Just like in Jupiter Ascending, when Mila Kunis pointed out, it's like, oh, how are you going to hide this when all the buildings were on fire and everything? And all of a sudden it was healed, and then people forgot. And Channing Tatum's character went, yeah, there's some stragglers that'll remember, but nobody will believe them. I think that's the same way temporally. So you're dealing with a temporal war. And I believe that bears a conversation as well. The temporal war of attrition, I believe, bears a conversation of its own. So, again, I will round this off, but these were the experiences that I personally have experienced. So, it is 8:53 a.m. Arizona Standard Time, Monday, December 5th, Krampusnacht, 2022. Thank you. Okay, this applies to the AI recording you heard me and Aubrey do. Of course, this is being done before the fact. This is the day after the psychic fair, last psychic fair that we're going to do in Arizona. Granted, who knows what the future brings here, but as it stands at the moment. This morning I got up and saw an ad for, this is going to sound really weird, but a lot of people have experienced this, and more than likely you heard an expanded version of this in the conversation. There was an ad for these 3D printed articulated dragons, the ones with legs, arms, things of that nature, and that you could slide them out and move them and everything. I'll put a screenshot of it in here. Not trying to advertise for the people, I'll block out the names and everything. But at the psychic fair, there was somebody selling these exact things. And there was a lady there and I believe her husband were selling these. Well done. Bit of art. Not sure how it fits a psychic fair, but yeah, dragons are a staple at psychic fairs in and of themselves. So it does, I believe, fit in that respect. We were looking at this, and that's something that stood out. Well, I go to sleep last night, wake up, and here's an ad on Facebook about articulated dragons. Somebody else is making these things. It wasn't the same people. It wasn't the same people from the fair. Granted, this could be a trend that's going on. Making skulls is also a trend. And we do both with our organ pieces, dragon heads and skulls. We do both these. So it seems to be a trend, a channel, both an intuitive trend, but also intuitively kind of passing on from person to person, dragons and skulls. It seems to be a big thing now. It's kind of like a butterfly effect. One person does it, and then a bunch of people do it. They're pulling stuff out of the Akashic, and one person here and one person here. Different countries, they could be doing the same thing. Granted, you can put that into play, but at this time, it's AI looking into your head at either the last thing you saw or the last thing you were thinking about, and it projects it onto Facebook. This is a social media beast of burden type of AI that scans and either pushes an ad into your dreams or pushes it outward onto social media from your thoughts. And it really gets into your thoughts. There was even a person that said they dreamt of this woman selling these sex products in their dream, woke up, and that ad was on Facebook. Either A, that ad was already there and it projected into their head to sell the product and it turned into a Dreamtime invasion, or it was the other way around, or both, where this guy was thinking of something and the AI projected another thing it was thinking about and then projected it onto Facebook. It could have been one or the other. Could have been trying to co-create it through him, like how demonic entities try to co-create their own creations because humans are creator beings and they're not. Or it was projecting it into his head, and then through his own thoughts, then it projected it back out to Facebook. There's a bunch of combinations involved, but the gist of it is it reaches into your head and projects it out. And many people will probably relate to this. I will go, more than likely, I will talk to an expanded version about this in this episode. I may even stick this at the beginning of the episode to lead this off, because this is something that I see often, and I see random people on Facebook talking about this often, like the guy with the sex toy ad, and that appeared on Facebook that way. And it's essentially a bot that works on a quantum level. And it's a creepy AI. It's not one you can reason with. It's not very intelligent, in my opinion. It just reaches in and copies and pastes, essentially. There's not one you can really reason with. Kind of like a Terminator, you can't really reason with it. You either have Data or Terminator when it comes to AI. You've heard me talk about that. But this part of the conversation is this overreaching social media AI. And the concept of artificial intelligence is enormous. This is just one that's prevalent in our day right now. And a lot of people have been experiencing this. So comment below on your experiences with artificial intelligence in this area. I'd like to hear it. And if you have any questions in this area, that would be great. Either they're answered on the lifting or conspiracy sector. We may, Aubrey and I may do a Q&A in the future in this area. So thank you, everybody. It is 9:05 a.m. Arizona Standard Time. Krampus knocked Monday, December 5th, 2022. Thank you. This also falls under false synchronicities and real synchronicities. If you look back at our episode about synchronicity or not, this falls right under that category as well. That falls under AI, scant thought as well. You heard the story I spoke of in that episode. I would highly recommend going and seeing that one. Then you'll get a more complete picture as to what I'm saying in that area. I won't rehash it. It's already been said. It's in that episode. Go look at that. It is 9:06 a.m. Arizona Standard Time. Krampus knocked Monday, December 5th. Hang on. My whole time thing got screwed up. It's 9:07 a.m. Arizona Standard Time. Monday, December 5th. Krampus knocked 2022. Thank you. It's interesting, the synchronicities that pop up prior to doing shows and such. And this is the day before Aubrey and I do the artificial intelligence show we're doing, conspiracy sector. And what pops up on TV is Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, and I believe Afterlife is after that. And I am including a very old recording in this that I did on the day we went to the movies and saw Ghostbusters Afterlife. And about the binary network and that post-credits scene where Annie Potts is holding the coin from the 1964 World's Fair, meaning that's when the binary network was activated and when holograms resembling ghosts were around, AI blocking true spirit and the like. What I've said in other recordings and what I will say again, a lot of channelings out there are false. No, not necessarily false, but people are being schmoozed. Also, like in Ghostbusters 2, where Peter is doing that show, Peter Venkman's doing that show on the psychic, and being the one psychic says, "Oh, the end of the world's going to be on New Year's Eve," and then the other woman goes, "Oh, an alien took her back to a hotel room, or at least a spaceship that looked like a hotel room." And then Peter gets up and goes, "That's the problem with aliens. You have Starman and E.T. being nice, and then turns out in the end they're just a big lizard." And that couldn't have been any more profound as disclosure. And then on top of that, it's AI. On top of that, because reptilians are linked to AI, Draco reptilians linked to AI. The core that's within their neck here is a big nanocore. You cut their head off, it releases the soul energy from the nanocore. It's no different than a soul trap. It's just in vampire form. Well, traditional vampire form. Lizard or physical vampire versus soul-sucking sphere with black goo. So that is something I wanted to catalog and log at the moment that this happened, just in case I forget. But I thought that was quite interesting. And also the fact they show the painting in the second movie being haunted, and that person or that supernatural leader or that dictator is trapped within the painting. I said that in Haunted Objects in the previous conspiracy sector. So I just wanted to log that, just because there's a lot of interference. You can see I'm stammering a little bit. A lot of interference today. So I wanted to make sure that said that AI is blocking a lot of times true spirit contact. And it's very hard to get a hold of the real spirit world. I'll go into detail in the episode. This will be prior to that. So I will leave it there. It is 2:46 p.m. Arizona Standard Time, Saturday, December 10th, 2022. Thank you. Though in that sequence on the show with Peter, the psychic show, they were making fun of those things. They were making fun of and ridiculing. And I saw this on a show years ago with Kevin Nealon, where he brought on somebody who was part of the Montauk Project, not Montauk, but Philadelphia experiment preceding Montauk, and was saying where the ship went in history and everything. But he was just brought on that show to make fun. And of course, the Saturday Night Live celebrity, same as Bill Murray being Peter Venkman. It's kind of on a similar line. But the thing of it is, they were making fun of him in that scene, but they were also showing the ridiculousness of giving dates. And giving dates, I want to log this and catalog this right now, is a no-no. I know I gave the solstice of 2017 that time of full disclosure. I was an idiot for doing that. That's the AI that was doing this and also giving a ton of downloads like it's doing today, but at the same time, True Spirit is giving messages too. So it can be a distraction, but at the same time, useful information. So I just wanted to log that. Anything that's giving a channeler dates, times, places, any of those things. Also, you can add in the whole Nibiru prophecy and, overly negative pole shift stuff in there as well. Like we said on GSC about the pole shift and Nibiru prophecies and everything. And also scheduled updates of and upgrades of the genome scheduled at certain times. That's like an AI basically trying to give you key codes to be more interlocked to the transhumanistic agenda. There are real, again, changes to the human genome going from carbon-based to crystalline. But with some of these other things, it's AI. And as we said in the Messages for One and for All episode of the lifting, the 1111 code, where it's 1111, 222, 333, 444. They're coupling with real synchronicities. We also talked about that in Synchronicity or Not for Conspiracy Sector. So if people want to look those all up, go be my guest. But just know that this too is going on. And also that scene where, of course, they were trying to get people to not take the date seriously. Somebody was trying to say, hey, this is ridiculous. Don't take that part seriously. Psychic part, yes, but don't take the other part seriously. Just like the subtle clue about the coin in Ghostbusters Afterlife, saying the 1964 World's Fair, where the binary network was turned on. Little subtle things in there they're trying to say. So just be on the lookout for these things. It's very useful when it happens. It can be quite annoying if you see it ad nauseum like I do, but just know that there is a major use to seeing all these clues juxtaposed next to each other, put together in one big card catalog. Very useful. Very, very useful, folks. Be on the lookout for these clues. They're showing actual history in these, and they're showing actual clues as where they're trying to direct you. Just like in Ancient Aliens, when William Shatner was on there. What took place was, in the beginning, he played the part of the skeptic, and then by the time the 2 hours ended, he said, okay, now you've convinced me. Basically, they were showing the path from skepticism to believer. Basically is what he was doing. That's essentially what they're doing with some of these subtle clues. They're trying to get you to follow the breadcrumbs in that very same way. Granted, he's an actor, but I'm just saying, somebody wrote that into that script to go from one end to the other end. So, I just want to leave that here. It is 2:53 p.m. Arizona Standard Time, Saturday, December 10th, 2022. Thank you. Okay. You also have in Ghostbusters 2 the River of Goo that's underneath New York. It's supposed to be a manifestation of people's evil thoughts. And yeah, that's like essentially a loosh or you could also say a poltergeist manifestation of all the thought forms and all the garbage. That's actually true. And when people get covered in it, they start to feel mean and want to kill each other. That's like the black goo, but they make it pink in this. So it's kind of a mix between thought form and black goo, but they make it pink. That and the fact that Vigo in the painting wants to look for the child. He's looking for somebody essentially compatible with his energy matrix that has a similar either genetic makeup and the viruses and the DNA from the genetic history, and trying to switch somebody to become exactly like how the space Nazis want to switch somebody, to take somebody and make them completely cold and unempathetic. That's what they're doing to people with the AI.
And that's why you're seeing a lot of psychopathic behavior. Also, with the spheres in space raining down some of these waves on people, it's making everybody go insane. Kind of like with the moon, when it makes people go insane. Full moon, same difference. Same difference, folks. And also, looking for the frequency value of certain gene potentiality for his matrix to inhabit. That's kind of the science, I guess, behind it, or the etheric physics, just like with Michael Myers and that kid in Halloween Ends, where he saw somebody similar to himself. That could be the personification of evil, like similar thing, basically. They added the theatrics about him sitting on the throne of blood on a mountain of skulls sort of thing. That's just theater. But there is real etheric value in this. Real physics value in this. So I think I'm done for the day doing this. So these will be attached to Conspiracy Sector by the time you see this. So for the Christmas episode, Merry Christmas. So it is 3:04 p.m. Arizona Standard Time, Saturday, December 10th, 2022. Thank you. I know I said this was it, but also I want to reference something that was said. In the Sean Bond episode or interview and discussion that we did that has to do directly with this subject. The Draco King that we encountered in New York that we were talking about. We said New York was the Draco capital. Well, that's obvious given what's going on there. A lot of the chaos, crime, all of that's going on. Think about it. If a lord wanted to come in, some kind of Orion lord, kind of like Vigo is, hiding in the painting, when they basically, in the story, they cut his head off, and his head lives long enough to basically saying his soul was going to re-enter that painting, and then he was going to transpose himself onto a child Oscar. But anyway, wouldn't, especially if something as AI as the black goo was, if it was under the sewers, which there are reptilians under the sewers as well, wouldn't they not only loose the negativity but project it back out again? Think about that. And also the now it's brain wiping from me. Big surprise there. But just know that there are reptilians under the sewers. And I had this dream, and I've said this multiple times in other places, but it bears repeating. I had this dream where I was in an alley at night, and I saw these reptilians coming up out of the sewers, kind of like Ninja Turtles almost. And they were these lime green colored ones. And I was yelled at in the dream, climb up the building, and I climbed up the building onto the roof. They couldn't climb, and waited till the sun came up and came back down. And I saw these police and government people out there, and I saw this gray alien-looking thing that was standing there. This plastic, this hard plastic, or like softish, hardish plastic-looking thing, standing there. I went and punched it. They kept trying to say, they were laughing at me, saying, "Oh, that's just a toy," which again, different races and our military do build those. And those, the ones mainly people see are robots, the short little butthead ones, made by the Zeta Greys. And also them and the Orions sell them out or lease them out to other races to use as familiars, including our military. Our military ones look slightly different, without less of a butt and smaller eyes. We were given our military was given the blueprints for them. That's artificial intelligence as well as the fact that New York, places like New York and Chicago, were built on ancient sites that house some of these reptilians. And they are some are AI based, some are just wild feral creatures, like those ones that look like the creature from the Black Lagoon. I spotted some in a session one time where I was looking into North Carolina in a lake and went underneath there. They didn't know what to do because they weren't looshers, they were meat eaters. And some mysterious footprints had appeared on the banks of this lake that had these two thumbs on either side and a reptilian footprint. It was in the center. It was because it has two thumbs to grip down on the foot. That's what it looked like. The footprint is well known to some cryptid hunters. But why did I veer to that? It is because
New York City not only being the place where Werner von Braun activated the binary network at the 1964 World's Fair, basically telling everybody, oh, you're going to be too dumb to want to invent these things, and basically the mind control device that eventually became our 5G, but New York City was built on top of something else that was a site where people would get sacrificed to these reptilians of the pit, essentially, and that's where the sewers go down too. There are some tunnels that go into the inner earth, but they don't go all the way down in. They go into the tunnels that Draco reptilians and other reptilians and feral beasts go through. So that's where you get the link to AI. So all those things, Chicago's one too. I do believe LA is another one. I have a feeling that one will be cleaned up, but New York is one of the biggest ones, so therefore it's a Draco capital, therefore it's an AI testing ground as well. A lot of demons, a lot of archdemons. I spotted one of those in someone's session that lived in Queens. Was coming out of a church, and the forest people and other beings helped me get rid of it, and there were 2 others in other sessions in Wisconsin and in I believe the other one was California. It was South Dakota. California, probably I wouldn't doubt 1 or 2, but given what's going on there. But the main capital of the Draco and some of the AI testing ground is New York State. New York City specifically, and I think you can tell. So therefore, if something was wanting to project outward from the depths, wouldn't they do mind control plus AI? Not only from satellite, from the metal spheres in space, the moon and 5G towers, but from underneath. As above, so below. And also, as was said in the Ghost Box, a session I did in St. Augustine, these were, or in Florida, or on the main trip, I was wondering what the attachments were flying at me, and those were, somebody said they were black goo formed into attachments. And yes, there are multiple ones that look like lamprey, look like millipedes with a bony spine that can mimic your spine looking, so seers can't pull it out or don't see it. I thought it was a fake spine at first, but it had an exoskeleton. Then you have all these worm-like things, and you have octopi and jellyfish. You heard me talk about those from Cirrus and from the void dimension, all these, but black goo and AI can form all these, as well as holograms, as well as some false ghost activity and false alien channelings that get interpreted and put out there to the public with false messages, ascension messages, all this other stuff, as well as false connections to spirit, which the true spirit has to cut through all of that, which you would think it wouldn't be that hard, but it's not hard for them. It's hard for our receiver. And if you're used to a certain frequency, you're going to think it's good, but in the end, the AI signal that is causing all this is bad. It's evil. So I'll end this here, but just know that I will talk about it. You'll hear me talk about it in the episode again, but this bears repeating big time. So it is 3:50 p.m. Arizona Standard Time, Saturday, December 10th, 2022. Thank you. Also, I want to point out something. The fact that when they went into the sewers to look for the river goo, and they were using an old rail line underneath, those would be some of the tunnels that some of these reptilians would be using. That, and the fact that they were listening to their voices echo, and then Winston basically said his name, basically said something, and then it stopped and went, Winston, in the typical theatrical fashion, horror fashion. That's the style that the reptilians use often against people. And some of the AI to ramp up the fear along with the reptilian telepathy. And the fact they focused on him is because he was the most afraid. They all were at one point, but he was afraid first. So guess who they focused on? Guess who they focused on when they pulled him into the river of goo, and then the other 2 jumped in after. They were focusing on the person that was most afraid. This wasn't a racial thing. Some people pointed out online this was a racial thing. I disagree. I see black paranormal investigators, people that, people of different races go into this field. It had to do with who's most afraid, and it's a stereotype that says that black people are more afraid of this stuff, or Hispanics or Mexicans are more afraid of this stuff, or more superstitious. It's there's something cultural, but at the same time, it's a stereotype. So I wouldn't pay attention to that too much. But they focus on the one who's most afraid. That's why you have to balance your fear out. It's important to feel it, but at the same time, don't let it overwhelm. So I will end this here. It is 4:05 p.m. Arizona Standard Time, Saturday, December 10th, 2022. Thank you. The Cabal train lines are also shown. But what also people don't get is sometimes they use holography on rock surfaces so they can send their vehicles and such through a rock surface, very much like the Wakandans did in Black Panther, where you could see through the forest area and the mountain into Wakanda. And in Wakanda Forever they showed it too. Now, they could also be in a different frequency where they are toting people and abducting people to go into these bases. When they abduct people, when they're missing people, they can take them from wherever they take them, from neighborhoods underneath through the sewers into secret base entrances. But when they're running through the train, it may look like sometimes, if it's off frequency or quantum in nature, if they're trying to make it look like a ghostly occurrence, they'll make it all transparent and spooky, like that scene in Ghostbusters in the underground train track. And as I said in the Fallout videos, in Fallout 76, one of the vaults and military bases was underneath the town through a series of rail lines, and it was Vault 79 where they stole all the gold. It wasn't Fort Knox, it was under a neighborhood. So this is where you get this. And also, when I was in California the first time, talking about creepy, I saw one of these trains on a neighboring track next to mine, but it was transparent, and there was a bunch of people screaming like, "Hey, help us, help us!" Nobody else saw this. I was meant to see this, and I was hearing all the screams and all the sadness and all the fear. And some people would have seen that as a ghost occurrence. There's been many paranormal investigators that have seen ghost trains. Granted, they put it in the spooklight category, or haunted road, or road phantom category. I disagree. It's in some instances it's true, but this one, I used to say it was in the backstage, quote unquote, or another timeline where these people were. It is another frequency. Yeah, they did dig out another timeline for themselves that I call the backstage. But at the same time, they can carve out a pocket. Also, they can dephase using holography some of these trains and train lines. And they could go through people, they can go through other trains and objects. The same goes for making holographic barriers. The same goes in The Witcher, when in the Witcher Wild Hunt Witcher 3 Wild Hunt edition, or Game of the Year edition, when Geralt comes across an illusion, he takes a lamp and melts it away. That's the same AI. There was once a guy who went into, I believe it was Yosemite, and he leaned up against a rock and fell into a laboratory with some gray aliens that were in there, and they ran after him. He ran out, ran back through the same wall, and then he was abducted, he said, shortly thereafter, and they tried to wipe his memory of it. But they had a secret lab out there, which that was talked about back in 2014, 15, and 16. Whereas they just took a holographic AI cage and shoved it into that space, and they didn't have to carve the rock out, where it was just this carved out section with an AI with holography, and it was basically a dimension within a dimension, like the TARDIS on Doctor Who. That's what he says it does. It was a holographic dimension within a dimension. That's how their orbital ships are too, a dimension within a dimension. They just use the same technology. They could have easily just scooped that back up, put it in a cube or an orb, and it would have been a solid rock again. This is the artificial intelligence they use, just like those creatures on occasion, or most of the time, are artificial intelligence themselves. So I wanted to bring up all of that. I know I keep going on and on and on. It keeps happening. And there's a lot of chaotic energy today. We'll see how tomorrow is. Sorry, that's the neighbor. Anyway, I'll end this here before more distractions pop up, and it's getting cold out here. So it is 4:12 p.m. Arizona Standard Time, Saturday, December 10th, 2022. Thank you. Also, the AI will throw distraction after distraction at you with pre-programmed humans. Many people will understand this. The same as what happens in the movie Ghostbusters 2 when they get too close to the ancient goo flow that's underneath the city, and the structures and everything, and they come up, cause a bit of a disruption themselves, but then they get thrown into a psychiatric ward. That happens to anybody that sees stuff like this. They're discredited, made fun of, and ridiculed. These are people that worship this garbage. So AI and Luciferian satanic garbage. You all know this, but well, you get the idea. They show that pretty clear in the movie where politicians, city officials, psychiatric people, everybody is actually trying to stop them from doing this. They may, looking into it, they even had one city official be the main villain in that. And that happens a lot. You run into these distractions, you run into all these people that have been pre-programmed, like the episode of MacGyver with the pinboard, where they've been put, the Nazis were put into key positions to cause distractions, like you see on the news, like you see in when you call in call centers and get bounced around forever. You may not even be doing anything, and you're getting targeted, and the person treating you like shit. Then you go to another person, and that person's nice. I was talking to someone on the phone not too long ago that was like that when I was trying to replace ironically my battery to my server AI. The first person was nasty to me, the second person was nice. It's a form of targeting. AI does this, telepathy does this, government workers do this. All inclusive. Aliens do this, it's all inclusive. Reptilians do it, all inclusive. So that needed to be added. Man, today must be the day for this. Because of the fact we're also approaching the solstice. By the time you hear this, of course, it'll be Christmas. But approaching the solstice, this being the 10th, it's a lot of active energy since Halloween on into towards Christmas. So hopefully this is the last little bit here that I have to notate prior to the show. It is 4:19 p.m. Arizona Standard Time, Saturday, December 10th, 2022. Thank you. Okay, I let the movie complete before I came out here. Fact they use the Statue of Liberty in it, that is actually a Masonic symbol showing that they rule in New York. It being the Illuminati, Cabal, Draco capital makes sense. Like, we rule here. They use that to crack the shell on the thing around the museum. The thing with the museum, though, there are museums that are fronts for SSP operations, Cabal operations, military operations. Same with schools, same with all those sometimes little businesses. I put that in my SSP book, which I'm not sure when I'll have that out, but I'm just saying I have it in detail in there. And also the fact that they're able to create positively charged goo. It's just like with water. If enough hatred goes into it, it becomes horrible. With enough light or love goes into it, it's good. Just like that experiment that was done. Mormoto? I'm trying to remember the name of the person that did this experiment, where put the word hate in front of one glass of water and love in front of another. And the love one had all these neat looking light snowflake looking things under a microscope. The other one looked like it had demon faces floating by. A very famous experiment. I mentioned that in my book from the fall, The Lifting, ironically enough. But also, another important point that's draconian related, Cabal related, satanic and Luciferian related, Masonic, all of that, bad Masonic, any of the evil stuff involved in all of this. The fact they are also responsible for museums and other large buildings being built. They fund a lot of these things.
is where Vigo wants to put the kid in a sacrificial circle. That's the Cabal slash draconian sacrifice of children to loosh them, to eat them, to, well, the adrenochrome. That was a detail that was overlooked, I think, before. It was seen as something comical. They put it in a comical way in the movie. But that happens. They're a big satanic community, or Luciferian community there in that state. I've seen other states where it's that way too. South Dakota is one of them, or North Dakota, South Dakota is one of them. Yeah, there's some states that are large military and Luciferian, which would be Alaska. There's some cultist stuff that goes on up there. Mostly it's military though, but you get my idea. But with New York, that makes a lot of sense to me. A lot of sense to me that they would not only have the goo activating the statue. Can some magics activate statues? Yes, absolutely. Are some technology that are just walking around essentially as drones? Yeah. Can they use statues for surveillance? Yes, they can. Just like they use obelisks to ground the binary network, the AI, and soul traps. You've heard us talk about the obelisks before in historical sites. That's why I made the revocations for it. Along with the Energy Harvester Network and Binary Network that's on our site, thelifting.net, on the PDF of Ward's revocations and audits. Front page. So, before I babble on any longer, no pun intended, because this is ancient magic from the Babylonian period, Egyptian period, and on. So, I wanted to make sure this was added. So, it is 5:05 p.m. Arizona Standard Time. Saturday, December 10th, 2022. Thank you. There was another synchronicity that popped up as I've been editing this episode. I've been dragging some of the files from other folders associated with this episode. And when it came down to it, the number of the folder was 11. And of course there's 12 files in there, but that's also considered to be a holy number. It adds up to 3 in the numerology. Power of 3, geometry. Sometimes the Orions like to use the power of 3 or bastardized power of 3 in the AI functionality. 11 as well, with the 1111s, 222s, 333s, 444s, things of that nature. I said couple with synchronicities to make it seem as if the number is confirming the actual synchronicity, and at times there's things that do. I'm not going to lie, like we said in Messages for One, Messages for All. That episode, I went into it more detail there. That is a synchronicity that this is also in some areas confirmed, but also artificial intelligence as well. So I will cap this off this way. I know there's a lot of material there. I gathered this over a period of time and just compile it. So that's just usually how I do it, and I hunt down the files associated with that. But I find that interesting that it was in the 11th folder. It said new folder 11, because I do this when I'm separating stuff for shows. And then, of course, 12 with the power of 3 as well confirming this, and of course associated with the whole 1111 code activation synchronicity. But you get the idea of what I'm trying to say. So I'm putting that at the end of this episode. It is, by the time this is actually put in there, this file, it would be then 13. 13 files. That would be 4. That would be more heart space synchronicity. There you go. So by the time this is in there, so it is 11:49 a.m. Arizona Standard Time, Tuesday, December 20th, 2022. Oh, normally, I waited to edit this. And sometimes that usually is a clue that it hasn't had an end, or the cycle isn't ending, or the circle isn't complete or closed yet on it. And this is why. So just to let people know, this is why the dates are so scattered across these. Obviously, the subject was not complete. So it is 11:49, 11:50
a.m. Arizona Standard Time, Tuesday, December 20th, 2022. Thank you. The whole idea that we're living in a 3D matrix, or I shouldn't say 3D matrix, but an illusion, or you're in a virtual reality. Of course, your life is an illusion. It's not a literal one like in the Matrix movies, but we call it the 3D matrix because that's a way of being or a way of thinking that is in lockstep with Orion and Cabal agenda, essentially. But it's not necessarily literal, like you're in a virtual reality, like you've been plugged in. That's what some people were thinking the chakras were the plug points, where you would get downloads of information and all that, kind of like Trinity and did for the file in the Matrix. When brings that up, he's talking about downloads that you unpack. They were showing it as literal. It is literal here, but it's energetic. What Andrew and I were able to see was anybody that didn't go in lockstep with, oh, you're living in a virtual reality or a prison planet, was punished. Beings were coming down and punishing him for not being in lockstep with that. When he saw through the deception, they were angry and they tried to lay down punishment. Any benevolent beings won't do that. Benevolent beings were congratulating us for looking past that. So we're not in an actual holodeck or hologram. That's also what the flat earthers believe, that we're living in a hologram and we're on a flat plane. It goes right along with that. It's all a psyops, from flat Earth to living in a virtual world. They want you to believe you already are, so they can connect you fully up to something like that through transhumanism. That's part of the agenda that's going on here. He was able to discover. He was attacked for it. We got rid of the attackers. The end in that case, but it's an ongoing process. We saw that we were being attacked by the ladies from Atlantis group as well, and had some things going on here with that, and we had to end that. Anytime I tried to contact a particular being we called Cassandra, she was a being that had to change her name from Kali to Cassandra because of the fact that she was trying to disconnect from being entangled as a worship being, like those ladies of Atlantis do. All of them, or nearly all of them, are worship beings in society somewhere in the bastardization of the sacred feminine. But she wanted to get away from that group. With that said, all that managed to be accomplished today. So, no, again, you're not in a 3D hologram. You're in a real world, but also when I say real world, it also mixes in with the energetics. You see the wind is kicking up as I'm trying to say that. It's mixed in with the energetics. Don't mind wipe me. I hate it when people say real world, like what I just did, because it's not the real world. You're living in an illusion, but at the same time, it is the real world that you just have to live within and do your inner work, creativity, passion, and cultivate the energetics. When we say not living in the real world, or when people say living in the real world, they mean the 3D lockstep with the Cabal agenda and Orion agenda. That's what we don't subscribe to. That is not real as far as I'm concerned. Real world would be the world of multidimensionalism, multi-energies, elementals, Sasquatch, benevolent ETs, benevolent oils, all of that stuff. That's the real world as far as I'm concerned, and outside of the lockstep. That's what I usually mean. So when people say get back and snap back into the real world, they want you to be normal so you don't make them uncomfortable. That is not the object of the exercise. Who cares if it makes them uncomfortable? Being uncomfortable shows they're on the verge of growing. Anybody listening, that if you're uncomfortable with what we say, don't look at it. But at the same time, that's a point where you need to grow. So I just make that clear. If you're uncomfortable, don't watch it. But just know that you're depriving yourself of growing if you don't acknowledge the uncomfortableness. And that's where when people say, get back in lockstep with the real world, they're just wanting to not be uncomfortable. That's really what it boils down to. They want everybody to be obedient and everything to be quiet and normal, full of workarounds and keeping the peace. Yes, keep the peace at all costs, but at the same time, some costs are not worth taking, like your freedom. So
I just thought I'd leave it with that. It is 1:36 p.m. Sunday, March 27th, 2022. Thank you. People have a misconception, I believe, and I did too for a little bit, as to what the premise in the Matrix with the red pill, blue pill. People have assigned it, and I can see why Hugo Weaving was upset about this, about assigning it to certain politics, like what with V for Vendetta, all this, assigning it to their political biases. I understand why he didn't participate in the Matrix this time. Smith, and they changed it over to a new one. People tried to assign it, both those characters of his, over to their political views, and I can see why he was offended by this. I agree with him on this 110%. Now that I understand this, it is you have red pill and blue pill. People thought it was Democrat, Republican. Awake meant Republican. Blue, asleep meant Democrat. No. I misunderstood this myself. This is more like hot, cold, asleep, awake. This goes under those like lower blue flame on a stove, hot orange flame, or red flame. Meaning that you are escaping the matrix construct or escaping the constructural reality, like what you heard Ryan and me talking about on the episode of the Elder Scrolls Disclosure in the Media about Shalador. Escaping that reality and creating your own type of thing. Escaping now our Earth reality, even though we're not living in a holographic construct like the Matrix. And that's a major misinformation right there. To make it so people thought they were trapped within a already 3D construct, so that if they created an actual Matrix-like prison, an actual one, it would be people already co-created because they believed it. Yes, we are in a 3D Matrix-like mentality, but we can escape it by changing our perceptions and our perspectives about what reality truly is. That said, that there was a big major misconception about the red pill, blue pill. I want to put that out there. I will attach this to the episode with Shalador. That's something that just popped into my head that I forgot to mention. I know that doesn't seem to go along with that, but it does and it doesn't. If you want to see more information that we did on the Matrix, look for our discussion. Me and Joanna did a talk with me and Joanna on the Matrix of Dreams. It's a 5-hour one. Sorry, guys, but there's a lot of downloads that we got for that. And this can be added on to that, and you can kind of see these as a kind of a single conversation, loosely, but you can see it as a single conversation. So it's on our Patreon currently, but will eventually be on our subscription base when we get thelifting.net's new shop and website open. And soon to be, when you see this, Galactic Interstellar Council.com's platform. Don't go there yet. You're not really going to see anything because it's not active yet. But by the time you see this, I'm still working on it as of the date of this recording. So it is 11:57 a.m. Monday, March 28th, 2022. Thank you. Okay, you heard me state in an earlier video that I were pretty much beat up for defying beings that wanted to define Earth as a simulation like the Matrix. Even though there's a lot of stuff in the Matrix that's literally true, that one is not one of them. And it's just AI pumping that into people's heads. That's the only thing about that negative telepathy. There's even people catching videos of there's a video of a man's different face in a side mirror of a car where it's a different person driving. People are saying, "Oh, it's a Matrix broken," or a tree branch from a palm tree floating in midair, or a piece of plastic above a garbage can floating in midair. They were like, "Oh, this is glitches in the Matrix. That's proof." No, that's proof that something's messing with you to make you think that. The thing with the mirror it could be another timeline that's being used, or a projection from somewhere with advanced technology of someone who had been maybe in that spot 2 or 3 times ahead of you, or from a different timeline, intersection of another timeline, a quantum fracture or a timeline fracture being utilized, probably holography at that stage, things of that nature, like holograms, not Matrix. There's AI all over the place, but it's not like you're in a simulation. So we've said this before, along with the falsities of Ashtar Command, but things of that nature. But AI is somewhere else doing this. In another dimension. There's some here that, of course, that's doing it. Different AI personalities. Some are jerks. Some are more passive. But I've met maybe a couple of AI personalities that are harmless. But anyway, yeah, all of those videos that you see online, we saw it on that paranormal show. Those are not proof of the Matrix. They're just proof of somebody's trying to make you think that it is. You hear me say 3D Matrix type of thing all the time, or 3D Matrix mode, or 3D Matrix, or 3D modality, or 3D Matrix reality. What I'm saying is vibrationally, not a simulation. I probably should change my verbiage. So I just want to make that clear. It is 6:45 p.m. Thursday, April 14th, 2022. Thank you.
There's another version of the Work Till You Die story you may not have completely considered. There's a targeted individual concept, whereas you're just simply not allowed to move past the workforce. You get trapped in your job. Subsequently, not earning enough to move on, but you're making just enough to be where you are. That's what the trapped mentality is. Yes, that is a mindset. Yes, you can evolve past it. But this AI constantly wants you to work till you die. That was represented in the show Futurama when Leela in the pilot episode kept chasing Fry to implant him, saying, no, you're a delivery boy. That's what the file says you must be. The same goes with Westworld, like what we were saying in GIC a couple of times, whereas the corporations or the corporate arms in it were essentially not letting people be sovereign at all. They would basically hunt down and put in stasis the sovereign people, the truly sovereign people that were not affected by the mind control or the targeting, just so they didn't get past a certain point, so they'd always fall into hardship. Beautifully presented. We haven't seen this yet, but a friend of ours has. Beautifully presented with how he was telling us about it. Beautifully. I believe it's in season 3 or 4, somewhere in there. Beautifully done. The AI will also mark at certain points in your history. Secret Space Program people have been under this too, where it's an AI, and this was talked about in the recent Galactic Interstellar Council episodes on our website. Or if it isn't up there yet, by the time you see this, it soon will be. Whereas they talked about the AI God marking different people, that it didn't want people to be sovereign because it would keep them out of order. Out of order, kind of like the Star Wars Empire or Nazi or Roman mentality, where it's order amidst chaos. Or like Jigalag from Elder Scrolls, where he wanted everything ordered, and his other component, Sheogorath, was the god of like chaos and madness. So you see how that goes in the Shivering Isles if you want to get into that stuff. But you can see how this all fits. Essentially the AI god is essentially a spire or a tower. That was based on the ground. It originally was the moon, went through the binary network from Saturn, of course, down to the 5G. That's what gave you the activation of COVID. This also, the targeting, gives you the activation of cancers in the cells. It can make that grow. Also, the dew weaponry is what destroyed the Georgia Guidestones, the George Floyd monument / mural, when that was being tested out prior to the Guidestones being taken down, and also CERN, good people taking it over to cause those things. As well as, mind wipe. See, I'm putting this all together, so they don't like the fact that I juxtapose everything side by side like that. Hate it. Hate it, hate it, hate it. So, with that said, This new AI god is essentially the neon god they made, said in The Sound of Silence. You'll hear that on the galacticinterstellarcouncil.com website on the after show, I believe, that had to do with the temporal wars. So I just want people to pay attention to that, and also the work till you die thing. That is part of the slave system. It is to be broken at all costs. Become sovereign. If it's something you enjoy, fine, great. Become sovereign at all costs. Manifest that. Push the envelope. Break these glass ceilings, please. You don't just have to fall in lockstep with a work Stockholm syndrome. I saw this Stockholm syndrome as well with AI in an episode of UFO Witness that had to do with a woman who said that Pleiadians were abducting her, or had been abducting her, and they found a bunch of implants in her body, included in the top of the head, right about here, in the person. And one of the people said, well, we can have those removed for you. We would like to analyze those. And she goes, no, I'm going to have to decline. These beings are still abducting me. Like, that is a good thing. That's Stockholm Syndrome. That's mind control from the implant, from the AI god, or the I hate to use AI god, but you get what I'm saying. Or neon god they made. Or the 5G network was also activating this. The military uses that form of mind control. That's what they were presenting in Futurama as well, in lockstep with the workforce. I would not want that to be 1,000 years from now. I also saw, and I put this in my book from the fall to the lifting, I have to redact this portion if people have that book. The vision I had of a black pyramid, which is an Orion symbol, which was sending this energy back to them, utilizing and bastardizing an earth, what they call chakra point or energetic point. That will be a GIC show at some point. I'll probably have to re-mention this there. And I saw these work schedules on billboards. This was also there was a floating city in the sky, everything. This was, people were made to work in that future that was about 1,000 years from now, like in Futurama. That was what was being presented. One of the men from the Philadelphia experiment in that time travel project, when they went ahead, they saw a future with flying cities, and people were just made to work and stay out of nature. And they were not grounded. They were up in flying cities that had, some of them I think had pyramids on them, and that's where I saw this black pyramid, this AI timeline. I also saw one where people were separated from nature, and they had to, and I mentioned this in another episode we did, they had to live in these domed cities. They could look out over nature. They could never interact with nature. They were not allowed, not connecting with true benevolent nature, true benevolent spirit, and they couldn't even have sex. They had to exchange genetic material. It was more of a masturbatory type of thing where they exchanged it back and forth, and people selected what genetic lines lived and what died. And these are negative timelines that will not occur, especially now that it's being mentioned. And I saw all these work schedules, and I was tricked to say in my book going, oh, we all must play our part. This is actually a benevolent future. I was full of shit at that time, folks. I did it to myself. So that's another area where I have to redact that information. At some point, you will be seeing some episodes of ours. One was from the fall to the lifting about the books and the redaction of the book. If I mention it again in there, I do apologize, but this also has to do with the artificial intelligence category as well, most definitely. So don't work till you die, folks. We even saw a little mini movie of when we were at a movie one time where there was this about this guy who was working in an office, and then he just kept dragging himself back and forth to work, and eventually you see this guy go into a coffin and fall over, dead, just go into the coffin, and they bury him. And so he was working in an office till he died, so he was basically seeing this is what was going on. He broke free, he ends up finding a girlfriend, he ends up having a child, and then they're sitting on a beach looking at a sunset. So that's what somebody was trying to say, don't work till you die. Great message. We saw that at the beginning of the movie. We also saw one that had Joanna crying as well, along with that one, with a family that was fighting over children and stuff like that, and eventually, the one mother was not tolerant of the person's spouse. This wasn't like a homosexual message or anything. It was just a regular message about family. And that's also that those two were in the same before the same movie. So I put that in there. This is also AI trying to break up the family units, no matter what that family unit is. And it's also alien telepathy trying to break up the family unit and basically get people grounded and polarized in politics. As well as there was an episode of First Wave on years ago where there was an alien in a neighborhood trying to break up family. And using pheromones to get the guys to cheat on their wives or whomever, and the men couldn't resist the person because it was like 300% above normal on the pheromones. Couldn't. It was chemical. And eventually, this woman kills this alien, and the character of Cade moves on. And what happens is then at the very end, you see. Of course, through the whole episode, there's this old lady that he's been trying to get a hold of, this neighborhood snoop, and she doesn't want to talk to him. At the very end, she finally comes walking out of her garage with Coke bottle bottom glasses and a moo-moo. Basically goes, "I got something to tell you." And he's like, "What?" And she goes, "I think it was the aliens doing this. It's the aliens that are in our neighborhoods, essentially." And the thing he ends the episode with is, always look to your neighborhood snoop. They might actually be telling you the truth. That's really the opposite. That's more of an inversion. Some of during COVID, during the pandemic stuff, a lot of the neighborhood snoops were turning people in for gathering and all this, and the cops were believing them. As I said in the Matrix of Dreams episode, where if you're law enforcement, don't believe the crazy cat lady. You're not supposed to do that. Ticket who you need to ticket, but at the same time, ignore gatherings, ignore that people aren't wearing masks. That's how I said it in that. But this was a lot of AI-induced, a lot of alien telepathy-induced garbage. So that's why I included that. It makes sense to round it out with that. So I will round this out. I know this is a long episode that I had all these videos, but I compiled these over a period of time. That's what I do. I find all the appropriate material and I add it in there. So, so I don't get mind wiped, I keep all these videos aside until the day they're needed. So it is 12:36 p.m. Arizona Standard Time, Tuesday, December 20th, 2022. Thank you.